Hey, my name is King. If you don't know who I am, my name is Israel King. I'm a writer, director, and anime commentator on my main channel, King Tannic. Now, if you've been a fan of pop culture for any amount of time, then you surely must have noticed the sudden rise in popularity in anime and manga. Films breaking box office records, series topping the most pirated show of the year chart, and of course, the very apparent fan base that has surrounded it. According to a poll back in February of this year, about 50% of Gen Z watches anime. Now, if you're not Gen Z, it can be kind of hard not knowing anything about this new, sudden, very popular corner in the pop culture zeitgeist. And that's where we come in. King Tannic and the Burnettwork have partnered to bring you the best anime and manga related news show on YouTube. The Otaku Experience is your go-to place to find out the biggest stories of the week in the anime and manga industry. Still not convinced? Try the show out for yourself. The show airs Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time or 5 p.m. Eastern. The Otaku Experience, only on the Burnettwork.
Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
There's a company called Hot Toys, and they make these insanely realistic, renderings of characters. They do them for all the Marvel characters or whatever, and they look so much like you. It's disturbing, actually. Like, scary. They look so much like you, but they're tiny. They're like 18 inches or something like that. They actually that's what's crazy about that company is they hand make they carve the mold. The mold of of the.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, whatever you want to hang on me, whatever nicknames you want to call me, good ones, bad ones, I'll take them all. Robert Meyer Burnett, and this is your favorite late night show on YouTube, Midnight Musings, coming at you a day later and $1 short. This is Saturday, the 15th of July. Beware the Ides of July. That's what I say. Actually, I don't say that. No one said that. So no one ever says beware the Ides of July. They could, I guess, if they wanted to, but you'd be wrong because it's the Ides of March, and unless somebody like Will said it, no one cares. But anyway, it is. I don't even know what I'm saying. It's Midnight Musings 59, dude. In 10 episodes, we can really talk. Not that we're not going to talk tonight, but you know her, you love her. She's with me. She's.
Hello, Robert. How are you tonight?
You are billowing early. Look at you. Billowing. I like that.
Yes, thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. I mean, it's been sort of there's craziness happening, I guess, in a good way. You know where I was yesterday? Just to flex.
No, where were you?
I went to Warner Brothers. I went to the studio. I went to the Warner Brothers back lot, and I had lunch in the executive dining room. And it was with George Feltenstein, the head of Warner Archive, and he hooked me up. But we had a great lunch, and I have to say, I honestly say this. I had the greatest. I love Caesar salads. I had the greatest Caesar salad of my life. Now, I have eaten in the executive dining room before, but this Caesar salad, it was a salmon Caesar. I got 2 big pieces of salmon. What any other restaurant would give you is their portion of salmon. It was on my Caesar homemade dressing. It was great. So George and I, we had iced tea and Caesar salad, and we talked for hours. We shut the place down. talked about the whole state of physical media. It was amazing. And then he took me to his office and he goes, take what you want.
Wow.
And, you know, I went easy on him. I only took 20 discs.
I was going to say, did you have enough, like, you needed extra arms, right, to carry
well,
out?
it's funny because he said, well, do you want, you know, and then he kept, it was funny because he had like 2 rows of discs. He goes, well, let's see what's behind here. Maybe you want these. And I'm like, I basically took any Warner Archive title that I was missing. Stuff that I'd forgot, like Abel Ferrara's Body Snatchers. I was meant to get that. Or John Landis's Innocent Blood. You know, I meant to get that too. And well, now I have them all. And George's like, but do you have this? I'm like, you know, I don't have that. And he goes, well, now you do. But the coolest thing that George got me, actually it's still in my car. So they were getting rid of, it was a kind of a stir on social media a couple of months back that Warner Brothers, they had all of their archives, like all of their print material, movie posters, lobby cards. They filled up an entire soundstage and they were throwing all this stuff away. I mean, literally on the collector's market, millions of dollars worth of stuff. So George went out, like everyone was appalled. Somebody posted a picture of this, and like, you know, because they don't know. All of this stuff should have gone to collectors. I mean, they could have flooded the market with this stuff. So George actually went there and he sorted it out. He said, you guys can't do this. And they went through and they preserved everything they didn't have and put it back in the archives and stuff. But he found, I'm always joking with him about my favorite French-Italian science fiction movie from 1960s. Well, it came out in 1967 here. The date on it is 65 in Italy and France. It's a movie called Wild Wild Planet, which is a crazy pop art horror science fiction film. He got me what's called a half sheet, which is a one sheet is 27 by 41. A half sheet is half of that. It's still 27, but it's half of 41. That's a half sheet. It's the same artwork. And then he gave me an insert. He got me Wild Wild Planet, a half sheet, and an insert. Now, here's the thing. They're from 1967. They're as old as me. They look like they were printed yesterday. It would be next to impossible to find unless they had been restored and mounted on linen. These were absolute, and the artwork is crazy. It's so good. And if you've never seen or heard of Wild Wild Planet, you have to go to YouTube and watch the trailer for Wild Wild Planet. Most people look at it and go, this looks horrible. But remember the era it came out in, pre-Star Trek. It's fucking awesome. And I love the movie. And Warner Archive put it out on DVD, but not Blu-ray. Because, you know, they haven't been able, I've been bothering him about it for years. I'm like, George, when are we going to get, you know, a little Wild Wild Planet action in HD? So I didn't ask him. I didn't know. And he goes, Rob, I found these for you. And I'm like, oh, my God. So it was fantastic. And it's always good. You know, I worked on the Warner Brothers lot in 89, 90, and 91. So to go back there, it's crazy because so much of it, I mean, it's been spruced up. When Columbia went to back to the west side of LA, and the Burbank studios became just the Warner lot. They spent like $1 billion renovating the lot. So it looks a little different, but it basically looks the same. A lot of it looks the same as when it was built 100 years ago or when they had it. So it was a lot of fun to go back there. I always love going, but it was a ghost town. SAG and the WGA were protesting in front of the Hollywood gate, which is the main gate to get on the lot, which is the gate I drove through, and the lot was completely dead. There was absolutely nothing going on. It was like a ghost town. It was really kind of spooky. It was like post-apocalyptic Warner Brothers. So, kind of weird.
Well, it's quite a find to find something that special, Robert, a film that is so unique and truly something you've been wanting for a long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny. I've often looked for a Wild Wild Planet poster and you know, one sheet or even a larger, like a 3 sheet or something. They're just hard, really, really hard to find. And all the stuff that was there. He also had it's a Japanese animated film that was acquired by MGM in 1960, and he gave me a poster for that too. It's the very first, and I took it. I've never seen it, but it's a cool poster to have. And you know, it's because I used to collect movie posters. I had a pretty extensive collection of posters. I sold my I had about $100,000 poster collection of what we call big paper.
Yes.
And I had them in my old office back in 2004, 2005, 2006. And they were all framed and linen backed. And I ended up selling them to the Fifth Floor, which is one of the preeminent previs companies. They've worked on everything from Star Wars to Marvel. They do all the pre-visualization, and it's a great company. And they took but I had when I say big paper, so 1 sheets are 27 by 41. 3 sheets are 81 by 27. And 6 sheets are 81 by 81. So my collection was a lot of 3 sheets. I had a lot of the Bond 3 sheets, early Bond posters, and I had things like The Great Escape and Where Eagles Dare and a lot of posters like that. They took them all. So luckily, they're hanging up at a place where people can admire them.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. There are 2 I'd love to get back from them, but I won't ever ask for them back.
And what are those 2?
2 posters I should never have sold. One was my original Italian 4-sheet of Zombie, which is, I think, 47 inches by 56 inches. Big poster. And I should not have sold my original Italian Mask of the Demon, a.k.a. Black Sunday, because those 2 posters would be incredibly difficult to get now.
Yes.
My 2 most valuable posters I actually sold to Steven Spielberg.
Oh.
Yeah, he bought 2 of my posters, which I need to pay for some things back in the mid-aughts. So anyway, but now I have a few choice pieces left that I've kept. Mm-hmm. I have a Clockwork Orange 6-sheet that's 81 inches by 81 inches, but where am I going to put that? I can't hang it up for Elizabeth's mom to see, because on it says, being the adventures of man whose principal interests are rape, ultraviolence, and Beethoven. Not going to fly with the old mother-in-law. So, but one day maybe I'll put it up here in the Robservatory.
Yeah, maybe you will. I still am looking. I mean, I had an oversized. This thing was huge, of Entrapment, a poster of Entrapment. It was the one where Catherine Zeta-Jones is sort of one leg is out and the other one is kind of tucked underneath her, and then it's got the Sean Connery in the background.
Yep.
And it was the perfect movie poster, and unfortunately I had to get rid of it, but I'm still looking for that one, and I know one day I'll get it. So yeah, I really want that one.
By the way, Ryan says, are they framed? All of my posters that the Fifth Floor took were all framed. Mm-hmm. And they were the Zombie was framed, and I had, and then I sold a few to other people. They were just so, it was great when I had my office, but then they were in storage. I sold I sold 2 to Dave Poland, the columnist, and I donated my umbrellas of Cherbourg, my original French umbrellas of Cherbourg, to an auction.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's just that, I had them, and as you get older, it's like I often thought I would have had a place. They were so big. There were so many of them. Like I had an original Barbarella and an original Danger.
I loved Barbarella.
It was amazing, and Diabolic, a lot. But I kept my
original Diabolique. The original Diabolique.
No. There's Diabolique, the French Henri Clouzot movie. But then there's Danger Diabolic, or just Diabolic, the comic book character.
Oh, okay.
So I had Diabolic and Barbarella on either side of the front door.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Quite welcoming, Robert.
It was my office was, I had the best office ever. People loved it. But, easy come, easy go. Now I'm just in my garage. The Robservatory.
It's your showcase, and it certainly is a very unique showcase, I have to say.
I know you're the only one who's ever been in here, and when you were here, I just moved in.
I remember you were, but it looked, you have a very professional setup. You were getting things in order, and you just gotten your new puppy.
That's right, Sebastian.
So it's been over a year since I've been there, but I can see how much progress you've made, and I can't wait to see it the next time I'm in town, to see what progress you've made in the Robservatory.
Yeah, you're gonna see a much different. The Robservatory is gonna be on the 25th when we debut this show. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good.
But yeah, it's funny because I have my Italian Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan poster that I need to get framed and put up in here. But and I have a lot of, you know what? So there's a thing called a 24 sheet, which is a billboard, like a city billboard. I have a billboard of Ken Russell's The Devils,
Oh
which
my gosh.
which I often thought I'd build a billboard in my backyard and put that up in the backyard, but or have like build a home theater and then one of the walls of the home theater just put the Devils up as the or put that on one side of the thing. But
It'd be a pretty big home theater, Robert.
I know. Well, that I want to build. Yeah, I want to build a like this garage. My dream would be to demolish this garage and rebuild it from scratch and turn this into a dedicated home theater and build my office on the second floor,
Right.
where
right.
Luca lives.
Yeah, that would that would be great. That would be fantastic if you could do that.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. So okay, and I haven't really been able. I guess we talked a little bit about it. I was on the John Campea show this week, but I haven't talked to anybody about Mission Impossible at length.
Really?
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about Mission Impossible, and it's funny because now I've seen it twice, and I have. When I was sitting there, like the first time I let it wash over me, but the second time when I saw it, so driving home from Warner Brothers, if I had driven during rush hour, it would have taken me 2.5, 3 hours to get home. So I figured, I'll go see Mission Impossible again because I haven't seen it in Dolby. I saw it in IMAX. I want to see it in Dolby. And so I went and saw it. I went and saw a 4:00 show in Dolby, and because it'd be over close to 7 and the traffic would have dissipated. And I have to say, I didn't love it. Like, I love the Mission Impossible movies overall, and I was just showing, I've been buying, where did I put them? Oh, so like, I went and got all of the 4K, the steel books that have come out.
Nice.
Even though I already had them, but they made these uniform steel books, and I thought they were so cool, so I picked them up, and I've been going through them, and I'd forgotten I had been a long time since I saw Mission Impossible 1. And I really enjoyed watching Mission Impossible 1. I really like Mission Impossible 2 because I'm a John Woo fan. A lot of people don't like Mission Impossible 2. I do. But so watching
Sandy Newton, right?
Yeah. And watching this new one for a second time, because the first time I'm enjoying it, I'm not really concentrating on it. Well, let me ask you this. What did you think of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
Well, I have a lot to say about it. As you know, I did a review with Catherine right here on the channel of Mission Impossible, and there was quite a lot to talk about because it is a film that's 2 hours, approximately 45 minutes or so. And, honestly, I think that it's going to make money. People are going to go see it. People are going to enjoy the film. It is as far as I'm concerned, something you could sit down and eat popcorn and, enjoy. But there were a lot of different things that I had questions about. For example, something that I noticed that was very unique, at least to this particular Mission Impossible, was that there are certain. And are we doing spoilers, Robert? Are we doing spoilers?
Sure.
Okay. Well, there were certain elements that existed that prevented the team from actually working together. And this team, it's not a big team. It's a tight-knit crew. And, I kind of wondered to myself, we've seen circumstances where they have equipment that breaks or things don't work out. And what's their plan B for when things don't work or when a member can't communicate with another? And I thought that was, something that was very interesting to see them kind of figure out what they were going to do. And I also love the introduction of Grace to kind of, I guess, maybe replace the Faust character, who I think Grace has such great chemistry with Ethan. And there's definitely, it feels very intimate. I wasn't a fan of how they took Faust and tried to make her seem like she was super close or had this intimate connection to Ethan, like through this entire thing. Faust is a character who seems to pop up everywhere at the right moment, no matter what. And then they're in Venice, and all of a sudden she's like, well, I've never been in Venice before. And I'm like, what is this? What do you mean you've never, what's happening? It's like, oh, they're going to go on a romantic gondola ride. We have to show how intimate and close they are. But I didn't buy that. because they always had a professional working relationship. They weren't close. In fact, every other movie was him thinking about his wife or this other person that he cared for. So they wouldn't have had that connection. He seems like he has more chemistry with Grace anyway. As soon as she steps onto the screen, and I can't remember the actress's name, but she was just lovely with him. And it was really something that I think enhanced the film, almost like Grace kind of revitalized the film. You know, I felt the first half of the film was typical Mission Impossible, and the second half might have been Grace's story, because all of a sudden she became this part of the team. You know, she didn't wake up that morning thinking she's going to be part of the IMF, and here she was like, gee, I guess I'm going to have to become part of this.
Well, you know,
just for survival purposes.
Grace is Haley Atwell from the MCU, you know, Captain Carter. And
Yes.
and here's the thing. So I also interviewed the costume designer for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning today, Jill Taylor, who was just delightful, and I really loved her work in the movie. But what was interesting to me is, like, I know that Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise, since they've been working together, they don't start with a finished script. Most movies do. They come up with these set pieces, and then he kind of writes. I think this movie, of all the Mission Impossible movies, really suffered the most not having a script. Because, like, it as I'm watching it now, the movie itself is not really about anything. And when I was watching yesterday, it is about this thing. They have to acquire this thing because they have to. The bare bones plot is there is an AI that has escaped. It was an AI that was designed to run a weapon system. It has escaped into the internet. Now, here's now I'm going to ask you this question. I want to ask you this question.
Yes.
So this AI is shown at the beginning of Mission Impossible as being on a Russian submarine.
Yes.
Right? And there's the keys, the MacGuffin. You need 2 keys, and they put together. You can access this AI. Right? And then the AI double crosses the Russians, you know, and their own torpedo destroys their submarine. How does the AI get off of the ship?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's why would it strand itself in the ocean? As I was
I'm
discussing with
now,
someone else.
and I'm looking at this. I'm watching this, and as yesterday, because I had this question, I'm like, maybe in the movie they're going to explain it. So this sentient weapon system. Now you could say maybe it uploaded itself to a satellite or something, but I'm like, it's pretty definitively stuck in this submarine. And they even stay in the movie. You know, they leave us off going, well, the only way to turn this. So let's table that idea for a minute. I'm sure that something was cut out that would have explained this. So this AI has now escaped into the worldwide internet, and it has affected everything. It has gone into banking systems. It's literally this sentient AI has taken over the entire world. We see no evidence of that. It doesn't do anything. Like it hasn't. I mean, we see like it can make Gabriel disappear in screens, but it's not like it did things. Like it didn't like bankrupt a certain European bank that was financing. And I'm like, okay, you've got this threat, and this it's going to take over the whole world. And I'm like, okay, but it's not really. We know it throws a good party. Because they go to an awesome party and you see the image of the AI in the party, like a total John Wick party. John Wick would have been right at home at this dope party in Venice or whatever. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, okay, where's the threat? Like I keep waiting. Is this AI so bad? You know, everybody's talking about controlling it, and I'm like, if it throws EDM parties like this with beautiful people,
know,
I'm
right?
like, what's the threat? I'm like, it's not threatening to set off the world's nuclear arsenal or something.
Well, I have a theory about this, Robert, and I also have to say one other very unique thing about the film was that for the first time ever in a film, I knew more than the characters in the film knew. You know, all of a sudden we knew about this key and then, you know, what it's for. And I thought to myself, I've never watched a film where I know what's going on from the very beginning. That's not normally how this works. Normally we're presented with a situation or a problem, and then maybe about halfway through the film, they're like, oh, this is what we got to do. And then maybe another twist at the end. But we didn't have that in this film. So that was very unusual. And the second thing is, I'm not convinced that this AI is on its own. I feel like it's going to be something like the man behind the curtain in Oz, or maybe even somebody like Professor X who's behind the machine, somebody
Yeah.
who's actually running it. I don't believe that it's actually this entity that's on its own. In fact, I think the reason why there was so much resistance to anybody controlling it is because this person or whoever it is wants to make sure that nobody can tell them what to do. They created it perhaps, and now they've been said, hey, you've got to keep this machine going. But that's what I thought it might be in the end, because if it controls everything, or it's control everything but the weather, was that what they had said?
Well, yeah, but they're using, it was euphemistic, but yeah, I mean, that's what they're.
The weather channel, everything but the weather channel. Why was that the weather channel apparently had a very good blocker for, apparently, who knew the weather channel was the
ExpressVPN, brought to you by.
Yes.
But
they were the most protected ones out there after all. But yes.
But I think you just hit the nail on the head in that there was no skullduggery in this movie. Like, we know that this thing is out there and Ethan Hunt is trying to get it. But it's not like you saw, and they say that intelligence operatives from around the world want to get it. Well, it's not like there were other nations looking for it. Like, where were the Russian agents? Like, this was a Russian thing that they created. It's escaped into the internet. Their submarine's gone, Where were the Russian team? Where was the crack Russian team that's coming after this thing and coming after? I felt like once the movie started, there was no skullduggery. There's no twists and turns. It was like Gabriel wants it because he's he was going to, and then they did have the idea that he's going the Carrie Elwes is trying to buy it, and I have to say this. I really loved watching the movie. Having seen it twice. It moves like a gunshot. The set pieces are unbelievable. The whole train sequence at the very end. I literally the entire theater, because I turned and looked, like the entire theater, people are just like this.
Yeah. I love the car part in Venice. I wanted to be in that car with Tom Cruise.
Oh, I'll bet you did. You'd be billowing with those broken windows. But I mean, it was interesting in the sense that, and even the way when you see the great stunt, maybe it's because I've seen the stunt so many times in behind the scenes things when he goes off the thing. It was anticlimactic because I felt like we didn't see enough coverage. Like they could have extended his fall more, and it felt like there was one green screen shot where he's falling and the motorcycle's falling, and I was like, what? Maybe it wasn't, but it felt like it was, and I was like. But even that, and as I'm watching this, I kept waiting for some kind of a twist, like Jim Phelps coming out in Mission Impossible 1, turning out to be the villain. There was no twist, and the idea that Gabriel, and even when Gabriel's confronting, they have the fight over the Venice canals and all that, and like Ethan Hunt's just caught between these two fences, between these two characters fighting, and Palm Clementif and all that. I felt that was pretty anticlimactic in a way, and even the fight with Haley Atwell was great, but even that fight wasn't enough, and it felt like we had two great set pieces. The train sequence was I really liked that whole thing, and it looked so good. I loved watching it, but having been going through the Mission Impossible movies, there just wasn't a lot there.
Well, the problem for me with that parachute jump situation was not the attempt of making it. It was how it was presented, because for the first time ever we had, is the guy's name Benji?
Yeah, Benji.
For the first time ever, we have a situation where he's like making these stupid mistakes where he's like, oh, I didn't have it on landscape, I had it on portrait mode, or and I'm like, he would make those stupid mistakes. That's like something I would do. They would say, here, RM, you have to tell Tom Cruise, and I would say, oh shit, I had it on the wrong setting. Like, that's something an amateur would do, not somebody like Benji. But the second part that was crazy about it was that he didn't just know enough to tell Tom Cruise's character, you know what? This is a Hail Mary, bro.
Right.
I don't know if it's possible. In order for you to do it, you have to jump off of a freaking cliff. And then at least Tom Cruise would be like, oh, shit. all right, I'm going to try it. And he could have, I think what would have made it more believable also is if he had just landed in one of those damn coal cars. I mean, you could see them outside. He could have landed on that.
Although I have to say, one of my favorite moments in the movie was, I don't know how I'm going to get on the train. How he did get on the train was fucking great. I mean, it was awesome. But yeah, like I felt that the movie was I mean, literally they didn't have a script. They started shooting this movie and they didn't have a script. Mm-hmm. And you could of all the three Christopher McQuarrie movies, you could totally tell. Like because other than these action set pieces, they didn't lead anywhere. It's almost like I really felt this movie, and it was made up as they went along. They had the set pieces and they had to figure out how to strung them together, because this whole AI threat, you know, and you do see when the AI replicates Benji's voice, like that's the only thing the AI did. Like it wasn't like the AI was shutting down banking systems in Dubai or shutting down this here, or shutting down nuclear power plants here. Like I've been watching a lot of YouTube shows where these UFO whistleblowers are being interviewed. And the one thing that freaked me out, that this guy, that one of the whistleblowers was saying, this reporter, the Australian reporter, God, I forget his name, but he's the one that interviewed the first whistleblower, and he was explaining of all this stuff. He goes, you know, in France and in India and in the United States and in Russia, some of these UAPs have been able to remotely turn off our nuclear weapons arsenal.
Yes.
And I'm like, when I heard that, I think I said that, maybe I said that last week on the show, and I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, if that's the case, I would think that the intelligence people would be up in arms. And I'm like, and like in the beginning of the movie, we see this thing that happens with the submarine and then Ethan Hunt. Like I loved the submarine and then Ethan Hunt, the whole desert sequence, that shootout and stuff was awesome. And the sandstorm, I loved all that. But I'm like, once the thing started, they were in an airport in Dubai for what seemed like 20, 30 minutes. And it's cool because that airport, when they shot there, wasn't open yet. Or it was in the UAE, or it was in Abu Dhabi. That airport's in Abu Dhabi. And they filmed it in Abu Dhabi, and they filmed, which is cool. But I'm like, it was a airport sequence and all that, but there wasn't, again, I'm like watching this, and all of these action sequences, none of it really mattered. You know, they needed to get the key, and the key, people just kept losing the key, and they kept following the key.
Key is one slippery key, Robert.
It's slippery.
It's sliding all over the place.
and the funny thing about it is, spoiler alert, even if you had the key, there's nothing you could do with it anyway.
You know, where would you put it? Where would you insert it to, Robert? In the 1957 film Desk Set, that stars Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn, movie. Yes, is a, I guess, more like a researcher or a librarian at a big company. It's probably the New York Public Library or something like that. And they find out that they're going to be replaced by a computer, or at least a computer's coming. They're all freaked out. Turns out the computer's supposed to help them. So they get the computer installed at the company, and you know, everybody gets their checks on Thursday or whatever they used to do, Friday, whatever it was. And there were pink slips in there. And it turns out that the computer fired everybody in the company. And this is exactly what you're talking about, is how these computer systems, you know, can sometimes do things that are unexpected. They weren't expecting the system. That was in 1957. Can you imagine what this system would do if it really was a functioning kind of rogue AI? Because that's how they're portraying it, as a rogue AI. Not everybody knows that this submarine went down in the ocean. There's a lot of secrecy, but yet, despite all the secrecy, Robert, why does everybody in the film seem to know about the IMF crew? Like everybody knows.
Everybody knows. I know. Like Shea Wingham, you know, he's like Ethan Hunt. Well, they say he's listed as going rogue or what, but yeah, it felt to me like this movie, I was watching this incredibly entertaining movie that was actually a first draft script at best. You know, and I felt like, for instance, if you think about some of the 1970 movie, The Colossus, The Forbin Project, that's based on, there's a book, there's a Colossus trilogy. And I was like, okay, I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, So I kept waiting for them to do something with the escaped AI. Like the AI would do something. Like it would become malevolent but it wasn't malevolent. I mean, aside from the fact that they give you the opening scene and they show you that, okay, this AI decides to destroy this Russian submarine, and it plays
it wouldn't allow them to manipulate it, so felt like it had to fight back. That's how I interpret it as possible.
Well, yeah, but I'm like it gins up the idea that there's an American sub or something, and why they would go to war with that sub, I don't know, but anyway, they did, and it wasn't really there, and it was a phantom. Like, okay, they just turned on this weapon system, and this is the first test of this weapon system, and this thing already wanted to take them out. And I'm like, does it know it? Is it stuck on the ship? I mean, and now the weapon system wants to, it's trying to get the keys back, or it wants to get the key back because it knows the only place to turn it off is in this submarine that is now at the bottom of the ocean, and how are they going to get to it? You know what? Maybe Lael Rockwell, the 1/6 scale man himself, can add some insight into our Mission Impossible conversation. I don't yet know if Lael has seen Mission Impossible. He has not, so he can't. He can't.
Well, I have one more thing to say about it. And hello, Lael. How are you? The final thing I was going to say about it, Robert, is that there's one scene where we see operators, those guys who train Navy SEALs, all those guys in the military who are incredible. They can do these incredible things. And we see an operator literally look at Ethan Hunt in the face with a gun. And it's like they have this moment. And I was just a little flabbergasted by it because even I don't know what happened there. But he doesn't shoot him. He doesn't tell him to stop. And I'm like, are they in cahoots with each other? Do they know one another? I think that was very interesting because it seems like they've been chasing Ethan all over the globe. And the one time that he has to kind of infiltrate him or stop him, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to shoot at him, even though I have a gun pointed at him. So, I mean, what are we to make of that?
I don't know. I mean, if you see even the opening of the movie, when you see the pizza delivery guy come in and bring the IMF tape, if this mission, should you decide to accept it, and he's like, Ethan Hunt's like, welcome to the IMF. Well, I'm like, where'd the pizza guy go? Like, he never comes back and renders aid. So Lael, what we're talking about is, so it is well known that Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise, when they've made Rogue Nation, Fallout, and now this movie, they come up with set pieces, and then Chris McQuarrie writes as they're going along to fill all the blanks in, kind of. Yeah. And of their 3 movies, this movie feels the least scripted of all of them. Like, it's got a lot of really cool set pieces that, in my mind, it's an incredibly fun time watching a movie. But you get to the end of the movie, and I'm like, what was that movie about? Like, when you start thinking about what actually was happening, it's almost like, aside from these action set pieces, like this monster car chase is happening in Rome. And I kept wondering, like, okay, why if you're part of the IMF, or you're Gabriel and you're Palm Clementif, why would you want to draw attention to yourself? Why would you want to have this massive, gigantic car chase where you are taking out Italian police? You've got American intelligence operatives. You're putting all these people in harm's way. I'm like, why would you do that? And if these people are as good at their jobs and they've got the biggest AI in the world working for you, why would you not just lay low until the AI tells you exactly where somebody is and then go after them and put a bullet in their head? Like, this whole giant action sequence in Rome, I'm watching this going, why would you draw attention to yourself? You're supposed to be this clandestine group, and it's like suddenly they're all looking for Haley Atwell, who has this key. I was just like, why is this happening? And it wasn't. I mean, they could
compare to Fast 10 even because it's a very similar situation.
Right.
Evidently, there's no logic in film, bro. Like, lately, there's no logic. It's all explosions, actions. They're not. I put it this way: not saying that there's logic, but there's no common sense or sensible thinking when it comes to certain things. It's all I mean, it's just basically for our entertainment. I haven't seen the film yet, so I mean, I have yet to see it. I'll probably go see it. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go see it Monday since I actually have a free day. So I'll probably get up and go see it and check it out.
Go.
Just
I
to
mean,
see.
look, it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
I watch. It's a lot of fun to watch. I had
Yeah.
a really good time with it.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
I saw it the second time, I just was just really struck by what the hell am I watching? Like,
Like, what?
and
what
I
is
was
it?
I was trying to
What's going
chart
on?
the plot of this. And I
Yeah.
know Mikey Lito's in the chat, and I haven't watched. He actually did a great. I did watch. Actually, I did watch his video last night. He did I was thinking, what? He's the only person whose review of Mission Impossible I've really watched,
Okay.
and it's pretty good. And he didn't love it either. And
See, that's the thing. It's crazy because I haven't seen a mixed review yet, but I've seen it because a lot of people have said that they've loved the film. It's the best one yet. That Tom Cruise doesn't disappoint. It's the best film of the summer. But there are some people that were like, well, it's in a sense, if you're looking at it from their point of view, they're like, it's not much different from what we've ever seen before. It's Tom, again, stunts, whatever. It's just more individuals. They said that this is more of a serious Fast and the Furious. This is what people are basically labeling it so far, with the amount of actors that they have on board, just the action. They said it's just a more serious tone without the goofy antics, but they said that there are certain scenes where Tom Cruise clearly should have died, but they're like, again, it's Tom Cruise's character. I want to see it, myself for what it's worth. I know this is just part one, but the thing is, when I go into these films now, man, especially Mission Impossible, I'm like, it's not impossible when you're Tom Cruise. It's just going to happen, bro. Like, seriously, it's never impossible.
I mean,
He's going to find a way to get through it.
I've really liked the franchise, and
Yeah.
Rogue Nation and Fallout have plots that I thought were worthy, and even Ghost Protocol has a really solid script, and even though I'm not a big fan of J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker, Mission Impossible 3, Philip Seymour Hoffman delivers a great heavy performance. He's the heavy as a villain in the movie.
Yeah.
And Mission Impossible 1's a Brian De Palma movie through and through. It's so gorgeous to look at and all that. And I enjoy Mission Impossible 2. A lot of people don't love it because it's kind of, if you're not a John Woo aficionado, to me it's a great John Woo movie. But I thought this movie was very slapdash. And it looks fantastic. It's beautifully photographed. You're getting great. It's like going to a great gourmet restaurant, like one of the best restaurants you could ever go to, and ordering a burger. You'll get a great burger, but there's so much more you could order off the menu, It's interesting because already now I wanted to run this by you now that you're both here. I read a really interesting series of tweets, and that dealt with. Now I got to find this series of tweets. I think they're here. Okay. This is a series of tweets that I read today, and they come to us from a guy named Arash Amel. And you know what? I should probably, to give credit where credit is due, I should probably I'll just read them. So Arash Amel at Arash Amel. So he's at ARASHAMEL. This is what he wrote. With Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 looking very shaky at the box office this week, it did not open like they thought it was going to. It looks like we're seeing a disastrous summer box office. Where did it go wrong? The answer is pretty simple. And then he says, a thread on creative risk. Now, this is the thread he wrote. Risk aversion to original ideas or IP, rampant corporatization of movie studios as offshoots, and the need to go bigger to please ours, and tired formats is a stale IP. No other business survives this and fear of the new. We have no younger generation of studios abandon lower budget original or fresh IP genre for fear because it would involve a level of risk and creativity incredible. Creative execs struggle. I've seen some of the best laid off, and the best of those who remain handcuffed to the same overblown, overpriced, and tired formats. Everywhere the larder of creative properties has been exhausted. With that comes Indy 5, Fast 10, MI7, etc., parts 1, 2, and 3, and onwards. Yet once upon a time there was Mission 1, Fast 1, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all made for budgets well below $100 million, starring young movie stars. And that truly is the underlying malaise, part of the new phenomenon of America's leaders aging out. Hollywood is no exception. We are in a death spiral. We have to win young audiences back, and the only way out is to go back to creativity and first principles. We need to get back into the kitchen and kickstart our research and development again. Drop budgets, take risks on new stars, build new directors, original projects, make 6 at 50 million or 3 at 100 million if you must, instead of 1 at 300 million. And I think he's bang on. And I think John Wick is an example of that. The John Wick franchise, I mean, even though Keanu Reeves is not a young man, he's been in movies since the 80s, but it was a new franchise made at a price with a different ethos. And, you know, Wall Street wants to make a movie for $200 million that's going to make $1 billion or more. They'd rather it make $2 billion. But in the movie business, there's no reason for that as a precedent. I looked it up. There's, I think, 56 movies that have made more than $1 billion total. And of those movies, a lot of those are franchise properties and things like that. But you can't build a business with that expectation or that business model. Because the funny thing is it's really about the profitability. And just because you spend $200 million and make $1 billion, that doesn't mean you make that much profit. You know, if you think it's 3 or 4 times just to even break even, and then you only make half of that in your box office, how much, and your interest rates and all that. So, I mean, we're seeing it with Marvel. Certainly, Marvel has fallen from favor from people pretty quickly. And Bob Iger, I just saw an interview with him saying, you know, we went too far too fast, but he was the one that built Disney Plus, and now there's the Star Wars shows, now there's Marvel.
Yeah, bro. I honestly, bro, and I was thinking about this even, you know, prior to this conversation, even, you know, before Bob Iger made that statement, which he's made a couple of statements this weekend that have been questionable. A lot of people are going at him for that. But the thing is, bro, like it's okay. Yes, big budgets, old franchises, new franchises are basically capitalizing because it's something fresh, something new. People are looking for that. But also I think, bro, like it has been a very competitive summer. You know, people have been buying for that $1 billion mark. You know what I mean? They want to actually hit that bill. And every studio is basically wanting their film to do initially well. But bro, I think it is, like, we don't want to say it, but I think it is saturation. I think basically it is oversaturation of these big budgeted films that they predict. And the thing is, it's like they were smart enough, they would look at those numbers, look at the success of other franchises that have tried to do the same thing. This summer it's been tricky, bro, because again, a lot is affecting the film going experience. Some might be like, well, why? Okay, you know, to say that, you know, films can't make $1 billion, well, look at you know, The Way of Water. I mean, you know, look at that. Well, we're talking about a franchise that had one film that was how many years ago? And
you're also talking about the filmmaker who has never lost.
Exactly. So he knows the formula, and at the same time, it's all about what he puts in it. It was really well written. It was emotional. It was something that you wanted to see. It was him taking technology to a totally different level. You know, when we look at that, and but also I think in speaking of writing, bro, like writing is very, very important to like these franchises. People want to see a fresh story. They wait to see something that makes sense and something that they can actually go on that ride, that journey with from beginning to end. Pacing has to be there. They want to actually invest in characters. They want to see character development. Like they want that, bro. It's not just about punches and powers and explosions and stuff like that. People want a really, really good, solid story. Makes sense. And if it's lackluster, bro, if you and this has become a ripple effect because if you see one film that hasn't given you that and you have questions about it, you're going to also be skeptical about the next film, regardless if it's in the same franchise. But if it's something different, you're going to be skeptical about every film that drops because the studios are promising that these films are going to be huge. The actors are talking it up. Yo, this is one of the best films I've done. Of course they have to because they have to sell the film. But at the same time, it's us. Like we're not us as viewers, as you know, especially viewing entertainment. We're not going to be fooled anymore, bro. We're not fooled anymore. You can't fool us. You can't continue to fool us thinking that we're going to just accept anything, regardless if it's Tom Cruise or not. Again, what was his last film before Mission Impossible? What's it called again? Top Gun.
Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
That was successful.
You know, that little
but it was-
movie.
yeah, it was successful, but it's successful because the franchise hadn't been around in a long time. You know, Mission Impossible's been around a few years, bro. Even when you think about Fast and the Furious, bro, you're seeing these films constantly.
Mission
every other
Impossible's
year.
been around since 1996.
Yeah, so it's been around, you know, and they're constantly making those particular films. There's no break in between. There's no pause where you want to just take a breath and say, okay, let's relax. I can't wait till the next one. It's like basically that's just how, you know what? These movies are just like basically living with your girlfriend every single day. You expect the magic to be there the next day. Unless you create that magic, you got to find the formula. Find the formula. Do something different because if you keep doing the same thing, it gets boring. And that's how I see these same franchises, bro. Like if they're not saying that they're following it, doing it, they're constantly doing the same thing, but it's almost the same formula, and you expect us to be fooled. Do something different. It's the thing is, it's like, okay, yes, the whole crew's on the run. How did they get to him? How did they get to Tom Cruise? Okay, let's get to his people. I mean, that's the way I see it, bro. It's like that formula's been around for a long time. No one's finding anything different. Even though I love Raiders of the, the last the Dial of Destiny. I like the film. I didn't have a problem with it, but I can understand where people are saying the formula is almost the damn same thing. And like you talked about, old grumpy old men, like they want to actually always, every time they age out, they get grumpy. It's the same formula. Us as viewers, we're not fooled anymore, bro.
I mean,
we're not.
The idea that you know it's 1969 and you're bringing back the Nazis.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
like once again.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to point something out. So, television streaming. I think that one of the real problems is that studios used to make popular movies that everybody wanted to see that kicked ass. And whether you're watching an action-adventure literary adaptation like Hunt for Red October, whether you're watching an original film like Back to the Future, whether you're watching a domestic thriller like Fatal Attraction, they deliver the goods. Like you'd go to the movies and you'd feel fulfilled. You know, you go to the movies and it wasn't formulaic. I mean, they played on tropes, but it wasn't formulaic. And if I could shamelessly promote our documentary 1982, The Greatest Geek Year Ever, which aired its second episode. Okay, its second episode was tonight. but Hollywood in that year in 82, the diversity of stories being told. Yeah. Action. I mean, you could go see Conan the Barbarian and Rocky 3 in the same week if you wanted to. You could go see The Road Warrior and Poltergeist. You could see The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, or Blade Runner on the same day if you wanted to.
I have something to say to that because in the documentary, two things stood out.
Me?
First thing was that there were many more studios, almost twice as many studios,
and more indie and more mini majors too.
Yes. So that's the other thing. So there was more competition. But the second thing that I found very interesting and wouldn't ever have known any at all that this was a factor is that I think in episode 1 there was a point where they were talking about adding on an extra science fiction film, and the studio said, no, we already have Starman. We have a film that fills that criteria.
Yep.
We don't want to take on anything else. I thought that was very important and insightful, because they essentially were saying, we know we can do Starman well, and we already have that on the docket, and we can't add anything else to the docket right now.
Give it space. Give it
Because
space
if we
to
do
breathe.
that,
Yeah.
we're going to ruin something that we're already working on. We know we have to hit all the elements of this film so that when we release it, it comes out great. Starman is a great film. I had no idea that they would say, we can't do that. We already have one like that. We don't want to go ahead and go ahead and make a similar film. It's self-preservation, and it's also about quality over quantity.
Well, yeah, and I somebody in the chat, Joshua Gonzalez points out, well, no one went and saw The Thing or Blade Runner when they came out. That's true, but they later became huge hits on home video and cable. And nowadays, while they didn't make it at the box office, the fact was at the time, there are other factors. When E.T. comes out and makes the whole world happy, do you want to see evil aliens 2 weeks later killing a bunch of people? And do you want to see the depressing noir tale that, we're a year away. The last year Harrison Ford was in a big movie. It was Raiders. Now you're showing him Blade Runner, which is a contemplative sci-fi movie about the nature of humanity. And people just didn't want to see that. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worthy of... The point I was making is all the diversity in storytelling. And you're right, RM, that we have very little... The studios, there weren't nearly as many. And also, Wall Street, the movies that the studios are making are all in the $150 million range. But I want to point something out. So the Emmy Awards, came out on Tuesday.
Yes.
The Emmy nominations. And I want to just go over, if you look at the both outstanding comedy and outstanding drama, all of these are incredibly diverse, and they're all bangers. Every one of these shows in every category. So drama series, we have Andor, Better Call Saul, The Crown, House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Succession, The White Lotus, and Yellow Jackets.
Yes.
All of those are incredibly diverse. One about British royalty, Better Call Saul, the Breaking Bad spinoff, Star Wars with Andor and House of the Dragon fantasy, Last of Us, apocalyptic survival, Succession, about Rupert Murdoch, The White Lotus, crazy weird people in Italy, Yellow Jackets, bunch of cannibal chicks, Lost in the Woods. All these stories. Then you go to outstanding comedy series. Abbott Elementary, Barry, The Bear, Jury Duty, that was on Amazon Freevee, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso, and Wednesday. I can't think, a movie created by a black woman about an elementary school.
Yes.
Based on her experience of her mother, which is, who would have thought that show would be incredible? It's incredible. It's a terrific show. Barry, an assassin who wants to be an actor or has to hide. The Bear, a restaurant story that becomes so much more. Jury Duty, just like it says, but it's hilarious. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, about a Jewish housewife in 1960 New York, becomes a stand-up comedian. Only Murders in the Building. Steve Martin teaming up with Martin Short, solving crimes, and and then Ted Lasso, an American football coach, goes to Britain to coach soccer, and then Wednesday, a spinoff of the Addams Family. If you look at these shows, that everybody, by the way, all of these shows have huge audiences.
Yes.
The studios, the studios should be looking at this and going, we need to be doing the cinematic equivalent of what the Emmys are doing, what the Emmy Award, not what the Emmys are doing. The Emmy Awards are recognizing the incredible diversity of storytelling that's going on in streaming. The studios, all they're delivering is regurgitation. They're not doing anything like this. Nothing.
Not at all.
And how is it that our streaming shows, and again, people would say, well, Rob, the streaming services are losing billions of dollars. I understand that, and people who say that would not be wrong. But the thing is, these are the shows that these shows are bringing the numbers in. They're not. So the question is, why are the studios, where did they get the idea that chasing after this 52 times? I mean, this list right here represents almost half of 52. No, not quite. A third of 52. So 1 year, if the studios could do this, and now you only have Sony, Paramount, Disney, 20th Century, which is part of Disney, so it's Disney, and Warner Brothers. There's really only 4 studios left, and Lionsgate, which is a mini major. So it's 5, whatever. And Lionsgate's giving us those things. I mean, you could say that Lionsgate, well, they're giving us another Hunger Games prequel, Rob. Well, at least the Hunger Games prequel will be a little bit more interesting with a younger President Snow, and we'll see his origin. And we did get John Wick 4, but they're keeping these movies, they're making them for a price. But John Wick and Hunger Games were examples of new IPs, new franchises, relatively new, in the last 10 years. And I mean, the question is why the studios, because they're controlled more by Wall Street, much larger concerns. I mean, where is this thinking? Like, I hope after this summer we'll see a change, because Hollywood cannot sustain this. Or can they?
See, that's the thing, bro. Like, we see more creative freedom in majority of these streaming services. And, not streaming service, but majority of these made for television type of programming, some streaming, some not. There's more liberty to be free to make content. And sometimes it just makes me feel like maybe some of these studios are like, well, let's see what you do. Like here's a space, see what you can do. We just need content to fill this with no expectation for it to succeed. And then when it does, it's like, oh, okay, now we want to greenlight it for another season or this, that, and the third. We'll just test it. And the thing is, then they want to actually stand behind it and say, oh, yeah, we knew it was going to do well. We've seen a lot of that. We see that basically. My problem is with the current shape that Hollywood's in right now, with writer strike, actor strike going on right now. Are we even going to see, after this is over, after this storm that we're going through right now, are we even going to see this same level of creativity or the effort put into it? Because people right now are tired. And I think, with things that have basically been said, I just like, something in me was like, yo, when it comes to Netflix, the stuff that's going on over there, the stuff that's going on with Disney Plus, the stuff that's going on in different spaces, are these actors and writers and stuff like that even going to want to participate in those spaces as much? Because there's a level of trust that's been lost based on the current state. Us, even us as the viewers, we've lost faith in a lot of these studios. I don't know where the level of comfortability is right now. I do know, like you're right, free form stuff that we've actually seen right now, where it's Better Call Saul, where it's House of Dragons, Andor, The Bear, you know what I mean? All those shows, everything that you basically mentioned, are extremely entertaining, worth basically watching.
And not only are they entertaining, they're enriching.
Yeah.
No one's watching. No offense to people who love the Dukes of Hazzard. I could never stomach that show. I could watch it for 5 minutes and I felt like my brain was falling out of my nose. But I never watched stuff like that. But we're getting, if you look at all of the shows that we're getting, whether you're talking comedies or dramas, they're all upscale.
Yeah.
There's no stupidity going on in these shows. You're not seeing some dumbed down if you're a fan of Married with Children, but that was designed to be a certain way. Everything that the Emmys were not honoring, all that diversity, and when I say diversity, I'm talking storytelling diversity, but indeed also diversity in terms of the kinds of characters that we're getting. Yeah. We got people from all across the board, and all of those shows are also true to themselves. They pass the Burnett axiom: never put your universe or your agenda before your characters and your story. When I was growing up, like, I mean, you might notice, I'm not black, but I loved watching the Jeffersons, or I mean, I loved the Jeffersons, or I liked watching Red Fox, Sanford and Son. I love Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
And I oh man, I never stopped and thought to myself, well, I'm not going to, and I didn't sit there and go, now I'm watching a black show.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought Red
It
Fox
was
was
just sheer entertainment.
yeah, it was hilarious. He was hilarious, and Freddie Prinze
And you
Jr.
notice how back then, and that's when, and you bring up a very interesting era, bro. Like, there was so much on TV that was different. They were shows that were completely different. Like even the level of entertainment, like even watching, like, you know, when you talk about like the 70s, you talk about the 80s, bro. Like there was variety and so much different. But this, what? Here's the thing, and I was talking to me and Toya talk about this all the time, bro. This isn't just in entertainment as far as what we view, but also what we hear. Even music, there's no differences in music anymore. Like
No.
literally everything sounds the same. And that really irks me because I remember waking up every week. There was one song that might have been released. You were like, oh, that's pretty good. The next week, something else was different that allows you to go back and appreciate what was released before, the week before. Now, I just can't listen to music. I can't stomach it. With entertainment, it's almost the same thing. There's an expected formula that you're supposed to follow. And I'm like, well, why? Like, why? And let me ask you, Rob, what do you think? Why do you think that level of freedom? I'm asking both of you guys. Why do you think that level of freedom to create and be creative has been like sort of like checked at the door, and like everybody right now is like being watched and monitored, and the studio feels as that they have to step in? Like, where did the confidence in us as the viewers to enjoy this stuff, where did that go? Like, what's going on?
Look, here's what I think has happened. Part of it is in order to the impulse to create is inherently about looking outside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're looking for something, whether it's the great guitar riff or the great chorus or the great lyrics, great harmonies. You're digging deep inside to find something that's elusive, that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that we are finding, I think, increasingly more elusive in our world because everything is coming to us through social media. Mm-hmm. There's less, and when people are doing stuff, they're doing things because they want the accolades. They want, like, as you know, any artist, any musician does not pick up an instrument and start thinking about how they're going to become. I mean, look, we all dream about becoming famous. And listen, it's been a long time coming, but let me tell you about everyone I'm going to thank for my Oscar for Best Director. I mean, we all think that. But but the thing is, people who are drawn to the arts are compelled to do it. They're not doing it because of the accolades that they will get. They're doing it because there's something innately inside them that draws them to the arts. You know, whether you're going to paint, whether you're going to dance, you love dancing because of what it does inside of you. To become a ballerina, to become part of the Bolshoi ballet, that's a hard road, man. And you're not doing it because you want the accolades. You're doing it because there's a fire inside you that makes you do it. Mm-hmm. And I think our civilization is having that bled out of us. Because, I mean, why... The hard road, the road that you have to go down if you're going to become somebody who hones their craft. That's something that has to be cultivated, like a beautiful garden. It has to be watered. It has to be nurtured. And I don't know if our modern age is able to do that, because we no longer prize. I mean, if you think about music. Like when we were growing up, like for me in the 80s, I went to Tower Records every week. I'm flipping through the 12-inch section. I'm looking at soundtracks. I was looking at jazz records. I was looking at all kinds. I loved all kinds of music. Who does that anymore? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, who does that? Like, I don't think people do, because our civilization, like especially youth culture, I was watching, just think about MTV. How it was the videos and the music. They were the soundtracks of our lives. It seems so cliche now. When was the last time, because I listened to a lot of music, but when was the last time we were all able to bond together as a nation over something? You know, when was the last time a big hit, like, think about the theme from Ghostbusters in '84. When it came out that summer, everybody could sing that song. It didn't matter if you're a parent or a kid. Everybody could sing Ghostbusters or Thriller, or Billie Jean or Little Red Corvette or, take your pick. I think there's certain communities like the country music community, there's still, because country music permeates industries like whether it's farming or rodeos or some, and I'm sure different communities like NASCAR and things have music that bond us, but the world has changed and people are no longer interested so much in what's out there as they are about themselves. Everybody is now the center of their own reality show. And I think like my whole thing for movies, I was always looking outward at the human experience. What do movies and stories and music are stories too? That they're telling you stories. They're evocative of feelings. We used music and we used media to define how we felt inside. If you had a favorite songwriter, it's because they touched you somewhere. And someone make a joke, where did they touch you? No, they touched you in your soul and in your mind and in your heart, and that's why they lived with you. And I watch Almost Famous, and when Lester Bangs, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, is talking about, music lives in your car, and then when Penny Lane says, you go to the record store and say hello to your friends, and that's what it used to be, man. When I was, music was important, and in America, pop music, you go to the UK. And music, in terms of generations, kids all the way up to older adults, they were all listening to pop music. Like when you watch movies whether it's what's going to be the number one song for Christmas, even in the Wham documentary, how George Michael was really hoping, he thought that Last Christmas was going to be the number one Christmas record, and then of course Do They Know It's Christmas came out and smoked it. It took the number one spot because everyone in Britain was listening to that record. It wasn't just kids; it was everybody. Yeah. And he got to be number one later. Last Christmas won it in like 2008 or something, 20 years later. But it's just a different world.
And it's a breakdown of social activity that we were heavily involved in. Everybody would go to the music store and get music, and whether it was a movie, whether it was that top 40 song, Madonna's top 40 song, whether it was the adult contemporary song with Celine Dion, all of these different varieties of artists, or that one hit one. I'm not going to say Carly Rae Jespert is a one hit one, but let's just say or those guys who did somebody you used to know. Those sort of like miscellaneous hits that would come out of nowhere. Somebody was just strumming on their guitar and they decided to produce a song. There used to be a machine, and the machine was essentially people trying to sell or push their music through these record companies. And it was a serious business because not everybody got a chance to go ahead and make a demo and do this stuff. It was rare. You couldn't just have anybody go ahead and produce that. And now essentially that's gone, but it also means that there isn't anybody to promote your music anymore. That's gone. And then now you can't make a living on the road necessarily. That's gone. And then
even radio has become corporate. Like you don't have DJs breaking.
AI, there's no DJs. There's no aesthetic of an individual, an artist, a person who appreciates music to individually pick things. And also we have TV shows and, maybe not every TV show, but a lot of TV shows and a lot of movies that don't have those hit songs. And those were known for it since the 1920s. I think Little Hiawatha was something from the 1920s where, it was a famous song and everybody, would sing that song and would know it, all the way up to present day. I can't even imagine. It's very strange having a world where those songs aren't hits. And of course, as I've said before, the James Bond movie seems to push it. They still have it. They're not going to let that go. But overall, every movie had that. And every movie had a hit soundtrack. And they would think about every time you used to see a movie release of like the new movie's coming up, it's the top 10 song that's in the movie.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was all. By the way, I got a really strange super chat just now. We're going to get to all your super chats, but this super chat comes to us from the 1/6 scale man, who says, in the billowing way, rated NC-17. Where did that come from?
I will make that movie as long as you write the hit song, Lael, and it can be like the billowing way. We can just do it. Let's make it, and it can be a view of
Got you.
how music and movies have changed and our
Got you.
response to that as artists. Let's do it. The
Definitely. Let's
billowing
do it.
wave.
The
Let's do it.
billowing
rated,
way.
rated
The
R.
billowing way.
Rated R.
Let's do
Rated
it.
up. Rated NC-17.
NC-17.
No one under 18 admitted.
But even something like that, where artists will go ahead and that's so important, because what you've done is that you're talking about something that it's on your mind. This is what artists do. They have different ideas and have different things on their mind, and it projects itself as something that's important. I mean, it is true. It's billowing hair. But what if it was, fireflies or the sunlight in the sky, and it opened up your eyes? Those are words to a song.
Yeah.
These are things that inspire artists to do certain things. You think about, especially, and I'm not going to say it's not just American, but especially, let's say, foreign artists who will say, I was traveling to my family's summer home, and, I came across a barn that's been abandoned, and they've got a legitimate story as to how the story has inspired them. And I don't know whether we're getting that. I think maybe that process is being stifled.
Yeah.
We talked about these independent artists, these independent producers and directors. And a lot of that was also part of the machine. Maybe maybe they were not entirely invested in a blockbuster, but they were invested somewhere along the line.
And making something that was entertaining. They had an idea, a vision. And it may not have they might have had the budget to really, accomplish certain things, but they worked with what they have. And that's why I agree, like, smaller budget, but, making something, that's memorable. You can, these big budgeted films, to me right now, especially in this day and age, it's like, can they be trusted to really succeed? And I'm really surprised that studios now, in the wake of everything, because we're not, and Rob, and we've been talking about this for a while. It's like, since COVID, since the pandemic, and when streaming services really, really, really ramped up, entertainment, and by doing so, I would even say, limited the film going experience. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have to go to a theater to see it. I can wait for a certain amount of time, and it end up either on this particular streaming service, or whatever. This is what's actually happening. And I'm like, if they're questioning, and that's part of the reason, if they're questioning, like, well, why aren't we able to make this amount of money, or why was our projections a bit off? That has a lot. Now, there are some exceptions, because we have seen some films that have done exceptionally well. But I just really think that, there hasn't been a full recovery like what was expected when it comes to the box office since the pandemic. I really don't see it. I don't see that anything has been that, even if there's been some good films put out and out there. I'm looking, towards the future. Like, what is Oppenheimer going to do? You know what I mean? What is that going to do? Like, what is this Barbie film that everybody's been talking about? What is that going to do? Like, you don't know. Like, it's like, could it succeed, or do we? It's a really, really weird space to be in, and considering the simple fact that right now nobody's going to be on that promo tour. Like, nobody, especially an actor, nobody's going to be out there promoting these films like we would think.
No, I mean. Famously, the cast of Oppenheimer walked out. They left the premiere, and like I totally understand. From it's to me, it makes me sad that, like, people like Margot Robbie, who champions Barbie and has this incredibly diverse cast. It's important. People, whether they want to admit it or not, when people go out on the late night talk show circuit or whatever, that's not happening because no one's writing late night talk show material. So so these films that people,
and that's important.
These films that people put a lot of work into are not going to get their due, and they might not get the kind of response because, and that is unfortunate, because I don't know so much about Barbie, but Oppenheimer, again, poor Christopher Nolan, he's been fucked twice now with Tenet. Not that Tenet's the greatest movie in the world, but it got, they put it out because of the pandemic, and it was day and date in theaters and on Warner, or maybe it wasn't, but it came out. It just didn't get the kind of response from Warner Brothers that it was supposed to, and Now Oppenheimer, you've got the actors strike, so all of his great actors, and he has an incredible cast by all accounts. Cillian Murphy and Matt Damon and Robert Downey Jr. are just killing it, and all the other, Emily Blunt and all the other people, Florence Pugh, that are in this movie are now, not going to be able to promote the film. So are people going to go see it? Certainly, I mean, kids today probably don't even know who Robert Oppenheimer is because of our deficient educational system, and it might be the kind of thing where the movie looks spectacular. I can't wait to see it. But the thing is, here's what, I'm totally behind the WGN. I'm totally behind SAG. The world has changed, though. Yeah. And like what Bob Iger said frustratingly, and I'm not saying I'm on Bob Iger's side, but the problem is right now streaming is not working, and we're watching these big budget movies, one after the other, go down. And so then what? What if the studios literally dissolve? People are always going to want entertainment. But if the studios as we know them disintegrate, I've often said we live in the post-cinema age anyway. That cinema, people are much more interested in, YouTube. They're more interested in video games. That experience, it's so interesting. I looked to movies growing up to deliver my human truths, okay? Well, when you watch Russell Brand interview somebody for 2 or 3 hours, maybe you get as much truth, or Joe Rogan having a 3-hour conversation with somebody. Maybe you learn more about the world around you watching that than you would get, say, watching the Thin Red Line or Tree of Life. Yeah. Maybe you do. And we never had that. Our media, one of the things that's new to YouTube and new to the internet is having one person sit down with another person and interview them for hours at a time from all walks of life. And I have to tell you, I find it fascinating. And again, I gave a shout out to Critical Drinker, but Critical Drinker was on Russell Brand's show and brought me up. And he's got a million subscribers, and Russell Brand has 6 million. And Critical Drinker actually brought me up 20. People were telling me, I'm like, what? And Critical Drinker said, Robert Meyer Burnett said that the online currency of the 21st century is going to be authenticity. And I said that, and the fact that he even remembered that I said that and gave me credit for saying it. I heard somebody once say on a show between the two of them, 7 million subscribers. Most of those people don't know who I am. But to get that kind of exposure, a studio, I would never make enough money in my life to be able to pay for that kind of exposure, even though it's just one sentence in an interview. But first of all, it meant a lot to me that Drinker would say that, and that he would say it on the Russell Brand podcast. He could talk about anything. The world is different now. A studio would pay for 7 million audience members. If I had 7 million subscribers on my YouTube channel, do you know how much I would get in ad revenue? A shit ton. Not Mr. Beast ad revenue, but ad revenue that is, and the studios have to realize that they're not just, they're serving up, as much as I love the Indiana Jones franchise, it's a franchise that belongs to 1981. And Last Crusade belongs to 1989. So you're asking your primary movie-going audience to expect them to make Indiana Jones a monster hit? A 78-year-old protagonist? How is anybody supposed to get excited about that? How is anybody under 50 supposed to get excited about that? I love that. We all love these movies because we're the target audience. We're like, okay. But even the studios don't want us to go. They need the youth audience to go. They need to. So if they want to capture what that series of tweets was saying, Jennifer Lawrence at Katniss Everdeen, she had young people coming. Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart had the Twilight movies that made them household names amongst the youth of America. Harry Potter, young movie stars. But what's funny about them, Jennifer Lawrence has had a career. Kristen Stewart still has a career. Robert Pattinson can be Batman. But these aren't people that are defining a generation now. They define those franchises. but
Yeah,
they
true.
didn't grow up. I mean, Tom Cruise was in Risky Business in 1983.
Yeah.
And Risky
Mhm.
Business was a huge movie at the time. It was an
Yeah.
incredible youth film. Everybody started singing old time rock and roll. How many people
Everybody
slid?
started wearing a shirt, sliding across the floor. Rob, you did it a few times. I saw videos.
I
So
did.
everybody's been doing it. Yeah.
And you know, Prince, his song DMSR, I thought was great. You had DMSR and Muddy Waters' Manish Boy in that movie. Oh yeah, everything gonna be all right. I mean,
Yep,
I
yep.
love da na 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 as all the
Mhm.
hookers come in the house. I mean, think
Yeah.
about that. You had Tangerine Dream doing the score. You had Bob Seger's old time rock and roll. You had Tom Cruise fucking Rebecca De Mornay on a train to the synth score of Tangerine Dream. You had Muddy Waters and Prince, both equated to getting laid. And that soundtrack was a banger of a soundtrack. And everybody, the idea that they started a brothel in their house, that became, you know, it was. Can you imagine today? Well, that's so degrading. Like everyone's missing the
Come on,
point
man.
now.
Yeah. You're definitely missing the point now.
And that was in one movie. And
Definitely.
I wonder where we're at now. I mean, what is youth culture like? Like, do they even want movie stars?
Well, the whole film Almost Famous focused. You mentioned it tonight, and it was on Turner Classic Movies tonight, Robert.
It might be one
Um,
of my favorite. It's in my top 10 movies of all time.
And the film focuses on, as you all already know, about a young man who follows a rock band as a reporter. Was it for Rolling Stone or something like
Yeah,
that?
it was. He was working for Ben Fong Torres.
Yes, he was let's say,
Crazy.
hypothetically, he was
Crazy.
underage, and he got to hang out with groupies and had a great time. And that whole world that he, was involved in doesn't even exist anymore. What would be the Almost Famous for the modern situation? What
What are you going to
what would
follow
it be?
Logan Paul around? I mean, I mean, there's
You follow
no.
influencers around. Is that what
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah, but the thing about influencers is all influencers do is be themselves. They've created their own cult of personality. The thing about rock stars was they were creating meaning through their work, and you had a connection to a rock star because they sang to your soul. You know, they had given you art.
Songs were written with meaning, with substance. And that's the thing. Music was written with a level of substance that you could connect to. And you found songs like it. Here's the thing, Ron, and I don't want people to think that I'm saying that these days you can't find that same substance. You can. It's just that it was more back then. It was like everything that was written had substance. You can listen to an entire album, and it was something to take away from it. You know what I mean? Whether it was family oriented in relationships, or just all about sex, but it was sex in a way that it was just provocative. It was just alluring, like you just wanted to again, those hormones in you, they spoke to those hormones, and you was like, yo, yes, this was me, but that's how it was. As opposed to now is just like nothing is left up to the imagination. Everything, like there's certain songs where yes, there might have a certain level. Put it this way: there's a lot of music right now that's really, 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 really depressing, bro. Like it's really, really depressing. A lot of people, and mind you, people need a space to really, speak, and speak from a certain level of emotions to really, if it medicates themselves or helps them to get through certain things, yes, is a space for it. But I was talking to Toy about it, and I was like, yo, why do people say this? They say that, yo, that type of music is out there. You just have to find it. But why? Because back then you didn't have to find it. It was there.
It was
And
there.
it was always there. It was always something that you can turn on the radio and listen
It's the
to.
promotion. It's when
Yeah.
those kinds of let's say things have broken down now. It would be kind
Yeah.
of like me trying to make a movie and not having that.
Yeah.
As a marketing tool, it'd be very hard to do that. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what's happened with music. And also, sadly, a lot of the music is not getting the pay that it deserves.
Exactly.
And
And
there
this is
was a lot of
this is what NPR radio was. I was listening to NPR radio the other day, and a guy got on there and said this. He said the digital download is killing music, whereas streaming services is killing Hollywood.
And that's why these artists are selling their catalogs of music that they've held onto so closely for so many years, because there's no other way for them to make money
No.
off of it except for selling the whole thing for $1 billion.
Yeah.
And
knowing that
it's one and it's one
more than
lump
that.
sum. I mean, and that's why everybody's doing that, because especially when they're older, they can leave something to their families instead of wait for a pittance in whatever you're going to get streaming. I totally understand that, and I think, by the way, they're not getting the big artists are getting a lot of, that's some really great money they're getting. I mean, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, my God. Incredible. And then again, what's sad though is that it's these corporate entities that are buying all this stuff. And you know, corporations, it's such a funny thing, because I think back to like science fiction predicted all this. And I remember Rollerball, 1975's Rollerball, not the John McTiernan Rollerball, the 1975 Rollerball, John Houseman and James Caan and Maude Adams. You know, that movie shows us a world where corporations, there's no more wars, the corporations own the worlds. Own the world, own everything. And that's kind of where we're at now. The corporations are bigger, and all they want is, you know, more and more profit. But eventually it's like everything's going to hit a ceiling. There's only so much profit you can make. And we, the working class people or whatever, are there's everybody wants their own profit. They're going to profit themselves out of us. We're no longer going to be able to afford. I mean, as it stands right now, the amount of money that we have to lay out in so many different places. I mean, we don't, like, when you go to the movie, the people would benefit, or you go to a concert. Look at how much concerts even cost. You know, if you want to get all Swiftish, how much does it cost to go see? And Taylor Swift's making more than $1 billion off this tour.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it, but like, for me, if you had asked me, like Debbie Gibson, shake your whatever that song was. Yeah, shake your love. Even I knew a Debbie Gibson song. I know the Debbie Gibson song now, 30 years later, 35 years later. I don't know one Taylor Swift song. And I would consider myself, I mean, I know if I heard a Taylor Swift song, I know that that's a Taylor Swift song, but I have never heard Taylor Swift on, like, she's been on shows I've listened to, like on NPR or something, but I don't listen to, I've seen her videos, and I like her music and stuff, but I don't know her. I have no relationship with Taylor Swift as a musical artist, and that to me is I think a huge failing on my part, because I think of myself as a pop culture sponge. I like listening and hearing about everything, but with Taylor Swift, totally, because didn't she come to prominence on one of the TV shows, like America's Got Talent or The Voice, or
I think that was Britney Spears.
Well, a lot of them did. A lot of
I don't know.
Origin. Let's see. Taylor Swift, beginning her career. Let's see. Maybe she was a country artist, songwriting professionally, Big Machine Records in 2005. Oh, she was a country musician. Okay, and she released, but she wasn't one of those people. She was working with the songwriter. She became prominent in the country music scene. I get it. Okay, and then she's changed genres, and she made a funny video that I saw the other day about all the labels that people threw on her and stuff. But I mean, it's like. She's probably one of the biggest recording stars in the world, and yet, with women all over the world, many people love her. But I think, is Taylor Swift, and I've said this before, is her music important, or is she the personality Taylor Swift important? Because I know more about Taylor Swift as a human being, because I've heard her speak on talk shows, and she's obviously very articulate and very smart. And I know more about her ex-boyfriends and all that than I know about her art. And maybe that's just a function of the modern age.
Well, it's kind of a shock because if you remember early in her career, she ended up winning Record of the Year. And I
Yep.
remember I had watched that, and there was a big thing about how she was up on the stage and someone else came up and all that sort of stuff.
Kanye West.
But yeah, but the point is that I think it is kind of funny that I also am not necessarily a huge fan of her songs. I don't run to Taylor Swift. I run to Adele, like maybe Adele's music.
Yeah, I do too. Yep,
more
I know a lot
than-
more about Adele because I bought her record, her records, first. What is it? What is it? Was it 8 and 16? That's Prince's label, Madhouse. What was her first? What was her number? The number out? What were they called? The Adele records. Because
I don't
I
remember.
bought those. I bought those first two albums, and I really liked Adele before. Running in the Running in the Deep was the name of that song? Rolling in the Deep, right?
Rolling in the Deep.
Rolling in the Deep. Before I'd heard that song before it became popular, and I thought that was a great tune. Then it was everywhere.
It was. It really was.
Yeah.
But
And
so
then she started
everywhere.
making songs for James Bond and things like that, which we would normally or naturally expect from her. But she's another artist. I think people still sing her songs. We could have had it all. Was that the one? That was Rolling in the Deep, actually.
Rolling in the Deep, yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, Taylor Swift is definitely a talented artist.
She's incredible. No, she's incredibly talented.
She's incredibly talented. She's an amazing writer. So she really knows how to organize herself and create. It's because she has a space and she's worked hard for that space. I mean, hell, like, who basically decides that, if,
I'll be right back.
you
You guys keep going.
who decides that if a manager, a guy, what was it? It was at that time, Justin Bieber's manager at that time has her catalog and refused to sell it, like he refused to give it back. So what she did was decided to play the entire album, like her old content. She'd redo it, but do it live with live instrumentation and stuff like that. So he doesn't get the resist. You know what I mean? Like she
re-recorded. She made new masters.
Yeah, she made new masters and stuff like that and done it. And that was phenomenal. Like, to do that was extremely smart and bold. So she is, but I may not know all of her songs. I know some of her songs, like, just by listening to it, and deservedly so. Like she does deserve, the accolades for being an entertainer and an incredible entertainer, an incredible writer, and a talent. I definitely can't afford those damn tickets. I'm not even going to try to, you know what I mean, at all. But there are talent. There's talent out here. You know what I mean? There's talent, talented individuals who have spaces, that, they're able and at freedom, to give you, some of the most creative pieces of work that will be here, stand the test of time. But when we talk about that, there's only a small bunch of individuals who are memorable that you'll remember. Whereas back in the day, it was like always, and I know people are like, well, y'all old. No, it's generational. Everything is generational. Whereas, like I said, you're seeing a decline in longevity and sustainability when it comes to individuals who will stand the test of time. You know what I mean? Going forward, your Billie Eilish, definitely talented, an amazing voice powerhouse. Taylor Swift, who we were talking about. What's her name again? Running in the Deep. What's her name again? Adele. She's definitely an incredible, artist. Of course, your Beyonce's. Of course, you're going to have individuals right now who are sustainable, but it's a small fraction compared to what it was back in like the 70s, the 80s, and stuff like that, when you had just a grand display of artists nonstop who were and then you can still hear their music ringing.
Have the record companies also had a very similar situation that the way the studios have, where there's fewer record companies and they're expecting people to make more money off of their albums than, is that the situation, or are there more record companies than ever? Do we know?
Well, I think there's a lot of music, but it's decentralized. Like whenever I go into Apple Music, there's all kinds of new stuff I haven't heard before. There's a lot of people out there creating, and like, I both love like EDM music, and there's always something being made. You have to look for it. But the problem is it's so fragmented. There's so many different kinds of music that there's no driving force. Like, for instance, where's the modern there are a lot of modern rock bands out there, but I look for them and I hear there's a lot of good music being made. You just don't know it's there.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing like Greta Van Fleet. I was like, oh my God, these kids sound like Led Zeppelin. And I was listening to a lot of Greta Van Fleet, but it was because they sounded like Led Zeppelin. And there's so much good music still being made. It's just who's listening to it. It's not, and we're all listening to different things. So there's no unifying. Like youth culture itself has been completely fractured. And also part of it, like you were saying earlier, Lael, the hormones, the idea of like, if your hormones were a driving force, and I believe that they were, from everything from music to rock music, now it's no longer there. Like we talk about how people identify these days. I'm listening to all these, there's all these different gender identities and all people talking about that, but where's the fucking, where's Love in an Elevator? And I'm going down, I'm early Prince. I made a Spotify Prince playlist, and obviously Prince converted and became a Jehovah's Witness, so he tamped down a lot of his
he tempered down a lot of his stuff.
But he was still creating great music.
Yeah.
But his early stuff, man, if you listen to like Dirty Mind or I started out with the song Sister on my playlist. I mean, you wouldn't even his early stuff, people would be shocked now, like, oh, that's so misogynistic. It's no, it's really not. He wasn't a misogynist. He loved women. But
love women is just the simple fact that he expressed himself a certain way, and he wasn't afraid to express sexuality, no matter if it pushed buttons or not. He didn't give two shits. He did his own thing. He didn't care about what you thought. If he whatever, look, I'm gonna say this, and it was crazy. And I want to say this in the kindest way, and I want people to take offense to this, but it was a conversation I used to have. I used to sit back and hear my dad and my uncles and all them talk about Prince and stuff like that. And my uncle, they used to call him Snap, rest in peace. He died like years ago. But he was like, say what you want. And he used to always say this. He was like, yo, say what you want. The man might wear butt-out jeans, tights. He might wear high-heel shoes, shorter than me, whatever, this, that, and the third. He might be this person. Sometimes people say he looks like a female, whatever. He was like, but damn it, he gets bitches. And this is basically what he said.
Oh, he got the best bitches.
And he did. But when you think about that, it's just like, and again, I don't want people to, I use that word. Well, hell, women call themselves bitches now. So that's just basically what it is. I'm a bad bitch and all that. But anyway, this is what they said. And it's true. Like, he kept women. But the thing is, he knew what to say. He knew what to write. And he spoke from a place where, from a male standpoint, we understood our own sexuality and what it meant to really crave a woman. And for a woman, what it mainly meant to basically receive that love or receive that attention and just use it to your advantage. You know what I mean? Definitely this is how it was, bro. One of my favorite Prince songs of all time. And I told you, Raspberry Beret was my favorite song. And I can play that thing until it just basically ends. But it's just this simple fact that the man knew what to write, and there were hidden messages in that song that you were like, yo, wait a minute, did he just say that? Oh, I remember those moments. Oh, yo, deep. But this is how much of a genius he was.
Well, also as a lyricist, even if, she was working part-time at a Five and Dime, her boss was Mr. McGee.
Yeah, bro. Come on, bro.
Raspberry.
Hell yeah.
She told me several times that she didn't like my kind because I was a bit too leisurely.
Exactly.
I mean,
bro.
his lyrics and he was a virtuoso musician. I mean, and what was funny was even like his third album, Controversy, the song, am I black or white? Am I straight or gay? Controversy. Do I believe in God? Do I believe in you? I mean, this is an 80. It was For You, Prince, Controversy, and Dirty Mind. Those are his first four records. I mean, Dirty Mind is. I mean, it's a great song, but I mean, it was called Dirty Mind, and he was producing his own records. He produced them all himself. playing all the
himself,
instruments.
bro. That's what I'm saying.
And movies.
And movies, definitely, and movies. I mean, come on, man. Purple Rain stands the test of time. You know what I mean? Under the Cherry Moon, like everything basically. I mean, this guy was brilliant. You know what I mean? And that level of brilliance, I think that it can be found again. It can be discovered again. It can be like there are people out there that carry that same level of brilliance, but are the studios and are these execs receiving it? Are they allowing people, or are they basically got their grips? And this is what they were saying. Stuff that Mike would say, stuff that Prince said about the industry. They warned us. They warned us back in the day. They warned us. They kept
not knowing how much they actually made. That was one of his major comments, was that he never knew the exact amount of money that he made to, like, 20 years later, even on some of the stuff. It really bothered him that no one could give him an exact dollar amount, saying, hey, you made 2.2 million. No one ever could give him an answer. He knew a lot of money was being made, and he was never seeing that money.
Wasn't seeing like half of it.
And that was another thing. I mean, that's these making money off artists has been something that's been going on for literally thousands of years. And everyone has been screwing the artists, and that's why we're in the middle of a WGA strike, and that's why we're in the middle of an SAG strike. And I'm supportive. My only thing is, are we going to get out of it? And I'm dubious. No one's even talking to the WGA and the actors. I mean, at this point, I could see the studios, because there's only 4 big studios left, and at this point, Warner Brothers is $50 billion in debt. You know, they could sit there and go, well, Apple, want to buy our studio? You know, you can have all of our movies. You know, and Apple, I mean, hell, Apple could buy all 4 of the studios, and then we'd have no more movie studios. And then what would happen is, and maybe there would be no more movie studios, they'd own all the movies, but people would still want to see movies. So would it just start over? You know, wipe the slate clean, wipe clean by the wrath of God, and then start again? Because because people are still going to want to watch all these things. Everybody wants to stream. People are going to want to be entertained. Yeah. But what's the problem is, man. I mean, look at those streaming shows that everyone loves. You know, they're not that expensive. You're not spending $300 million to make 6 episodes of Citadel for 40 minutes an episode. You know, you're making The White Lotus. You're making The Bear. You know, you're making Succession, even though that was an expensive show because they're making it in New York or whatever. It's still a bunch of people talking in rooms. A show that is completely reliant on 2 things: writers and actors. Yep. That was Succession. Yep. And you know, it's and
it's like they finished off a season, they finished off a show before all the shit hit the fan. They were like, yeah, we dodged the bullet. We got whatever we needed to get out. Because I guarantee you, if there was another season, oh my God, bro, they would suffer probably the same thing Heroes suffered that time. There was a writer's strike.
Yeah, never recovered either.
Never recovered, bro.
That was a great show. By the way, we have a lot of super chats. I'd love to address.
Read those super chats. I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back.
Right? You said there was 2 tweets. Did you read both of them?
Yeah, it was 2. I had 2 piece passages. Because it was a long series of tweets. So
okay, great.
So first of all, OG fan, when Star Wars was just Star Wars, sends in a super chat. It says, hello, Rob, and the queen of streams and my dreams, the lovely long live the queen. And hello to Lael if and when he gets here, and greetings to the chat. Well, OG fan, I'll tell him you said hello. He'll come back. He's just getting some water, which is what I just did. M. Tarmizzi says, hello, everyone. I've watched Dead Reckoning, and I enjoyed it overall. I must say, I got distracted by Haley Atwell's presence. She is the epitome of beauty. She certainly is. And Jill Taylor, the costume designer who I interviewed today, said she has a wonderful figure. And I'm like, yes, she does. Yes, she does. Tom Jr. Jackson says, looking good, Rob. And, of course, is always a celestial angel of billowing beauty.
Oh,
Tom, you old smoothie.
We are all goof people, Tom. We are all goof people.
We certainly are. Unbiased Lucas Schill sends in a tip and said, my unbiased Dead Reckoning review, Dial of Destiny had a better knife spear fight, a better action set piece with a train, a better climax to the train scene, a better car chase scene, a better use of analog computers, aka the Antikythera, and more affable female lead. Well, unbiased Lucas Schill, I can see that you are unbiased. So who am I to say you're wrong? So I'm not going to. I'm not going to say you're wrong. Ron C. sent in a $50 super chat.
Well, thank you, Ron.
Robin Urton says, the 1987 comedy The Secret of My Success with Helen Slater, Supergirl herself, and Michael J. Fox conducts his neighbor's epic lovemaking as an actual symphony. Hilarious, raunchy humor with class and something AI will not write in a film. Or maybe it will. It won't.
It's about fucking.
Exactly.
It's about
By the way,
him.
Lael, OG Star Wars fan, when Star Wars was just Star Wars, says hello to Lael.
It's
Hello,
about
my guy.
this young man getting ahead in more ways than one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I love it. The Secret of My Success is one of the great
Infectious.
80s comedies. It's so good.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
so sweet as he has to satisfy all these women. I knew Michael J. Fox had it in him all along.
Hell yeah.
The best of us do. Just saying.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Ron C. says, welcome, Lael.
Hello, guy.
Sean Hoover sends in a super chat and says, MI7 is an end cap part 1 to this series. It has callbacks to the first Mission Impossible, including Kittredge back as the IMF secretary and the end train sequence, among others. Seems like they're going for a close to the franchise to me. I could see that. I think you're absolutely right about that. You know, it's funny. The train sequence in Mission Impossible 1 is pretty much all visual effects. But you know what? Even though you know it's all visual effects, it still holds up. I just watched it because Brian De Palma does a great job shooting it. Stephen Burham, who was the cinematographer, fucking crushes it in that movie. And, you know, when they started that franchise, it was going to be a showcase for different directors. So you had De Palma, one of the great directors of the time. Then it was John Woo, who was brought to America and one of the great action directors. And then you had J.J. Abrams taking over, and then Brad Bird, who did Pixar stuff and did Family Dog. The first Family Dog, which was great, that was part of the first Amazing Stories in the 80s. And then you had Chris McQuarrie come on board. So, yeah, I mean, probably is an end cap, but hey. Scott Bartholomew says, do actors get residuals from their work? Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. That's one of the big, you know, they deserve that. Nathan Trujillo has renewed his PGS Hero membership. Well, thank you, Nathan. I very much appreciate that. Thanks for being a member. There will be a member chat next Saturday. Brent Schumacher says, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning was not up to par of the prior flicks. The train stuff felt like a rehash of MI1, so rock climbing and bike jousting in Dead Reckoning 2. Well, I hope not. I hope they come up with some more interesting and new stuff. You know, I don't know. I mean, I didn't mind that stuff because I always love a good train gag, but that was very different than what happened in MI1.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was good. But you're not.
See it. I'm gonna definitely go see it on Monday.
Yeah, you gotta go see it. Rebel Sky says, I got a new name for you, Rob. I'm a bit behind in the stream, but I crown you the king and sire of fandom Esquire. Well, I'll take that. The king and sire of fandom Esquire. Since you hung it on me, I can't wait to start calling myself the king, as if my ego isn't already overly inflated. So I thank you for that, Rebel Sky. Although, should you change your new name to Rebel Moon so you could be shilling for our favorite Zack Snyder? Maybe. Hi, Urton and Lael, says Rebel Sky.
Hey, how you doing?
Stephen Bro says, Tom Cruise had his braking mask protocol mishap during MI7 and MI8. I believe we underestimated how much the pandemic affected these movies. Well, I think they came out okay. I mean, having interviewed, I mean, obviously it was a problem, but they had really great protocols in place. I don't know. I think that maybe the fact that they didn't have a really solid script to start with might have hurt the movie. And for me, it became less enjoyable as it went along. Still enjoyable. It's still the fastest 2 hours and 48 minutes I've ever spent in a movie theater, I'll tell you that. It was amazing. Joe Panora says, what about 227 and a Different World?
Oh hell yeah, 227 Different World, the Cosbys. I don't care what nobody said, even though the Cosbys
I
were
know.
still good. Man, there were so many dope shows back then.
Yes.
That was full of, I mean, literally, and they took you, they taught you things. You couldn't wait to see them. Hell, I remember my whole catalog back in the day is just, when I think about it, like when I think about my Friday nights, you know, whether it was the Dukes of Hazzard, which, you know, again,
I can't
to
believe
some,
you
it was
watched that
kinda weird.
swill.
I had to watch Dukes of Hazzard to get to the Incredible Hulk, because that used to always come on as well.
All right, I'll buy that.
Not Landing used to also come on. You know, there was also Dynasty. You had to, you know,
Yes.
you know, we thought about those shows too. Again, like there was so much. Greatest American Hero 2 back in the 80s, bro. Like when we think about that. But no, there was so much, you know, diversity in entertainment.
Right.
And it's not to say that there's not diversity in entertainment now. It's just that there were so much more freedoms then than there are now to really be involved in your creativity without someone telling you that you need to do it a certain way.
Right.
I want to shout out to Regina King, who started on 227. You guys
Yes, she
remember?
did. Yes, she did.
Was a young girl in it, you know, along with a lot of other famous actors on the show as well. But you
Yep.
know, she went on, of course, as you guys know, to win an Academy Award for Best Actress. I
Yeah.
believe it was Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, but it
Mhm.
certainly was such an accomplishment for Regina King. You
Mhm.
know, acting, being a child actor, all
Mhm.
those years, practically her entire life, and then
Mhm.
winning an Academy Award. It was such
Mhm.
a great moment for her.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Good call.
Yeah, no, and again, we got all that great stuff. I mean,
Great content.
Stubble McShave says, I've said earlier my favorite movie year is 1994. You had movies like The Crow, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, Dumb and Dumber, Interview with a Vampire, True Lies, Clear and Present Danger, Leon, Speed, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Natural Born Killers, Stargate, and many more. Good, diverse movies made on a budget. Yeah, and will we ever see the likes of that come back? I don't know.
That's the question. That's the question. Will we see that actually come back? I think, you know what, again, bro, like I put it this way. I was really, really optimistic before last week. I was really optimistic before last week. You know, I was like, yo, you know, the writer's strike, yes, it's gonna last a while. But I thought that there was a possibility for hope. But then my hope just crashed and burned when the actors basically decided to join the line too, because of unfair treatment and with valid points. You know what I mean? With a lot of valid points. And it's like, yo, it looks like we have to buckle up. Like, cause it looks like it's gonna be a long ride, bro. It definitely does. And I'm just afraid of, because of that, are we gonna be able to get back to form and entertainment after this is over? Because it's even like, you know, when we think about it, like everybody's going to be excited when the announcement is made that they've come to an agreement. But then from there, what happens? Because it's going to take a while to get back in a form, to shake off the dust, to, you know, to re-oil, to try to get back in a form, you know, to get those juices flowing, right? You know, better content. And I was like, even saying, like, I felt as though even with like writers, they knew like this was coming up. So it was just like, yo, their frustration was also taken out in the writing. They were like, you know what, fuck this. You know what I mean? Like literally just, you can just sort of tell. So I'm just hoping that eventually once this ends, that they can get back to form, bro, that we can get back to true to form, you know, great writing, great character development, great acting, and that the studios stand behind that. And that's the thing. They need to stand behind their actors, their writers, their producers, all that, bro, and put that confidence back instead of just being greed. All of this just seems like it's just a big pile of greed, bro. Everybody, it's just greed. And like, when is that going to actually end? It's just terrible to me, bro.
Are Asian markets affected by this? Are Asian productions like in India or in
No,
are they
India is
No.
not SAG.
Nope.
so they're
Yeah.
going to continue to make,
Mhm.
a bunch of fantastic films. I mean, we had RRR last year with
Mhm.
along with a bunch of other incredible productions,
Yeah.
Korean films, as well as what about shows in Africa? Are those affected at all?
Nope.
So we're going to have our Nigerian, shows, all that sort of stuff. I think maybe this might be over the next year or so when these other shows will shine even more. Maybe it's going to be the time for these foreign film production companies to
I'm with that. I'm
to
with that.
come forward and
Yeah, I mean,
they
Definitely with
films
that.
for much less money, right?
I'm with that.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to see more like an influx of Asian cinema. I mean, who knows? I mean, I do fear.
Better porn.
Yeah, well,
I'm just playing.
I would love to see. I would love to see. Porn has gotten so mechanical and boring. I watch a lot of Dutch girls masturbating.
Look at.
I don't have a problem with it as long as there is consenting adults. The biggest issue that had been happening recently was that it was not consenting adults.
Right.
People who were whatever the situation was. If it's consenting adults, if it's done tastefully, there's absolutely nothing wrong with adult entertainment. And I think there is a certain beauty.
I don't know what's going on with it now. I'm out of touch with everything. I'm really literally out of touch. But like you're right, like foreign films, man, like a lot of foreign. Even I don't because I even think that over in Europe it doesn't affect them either because like they're still doing House of the Dragons because they're unionized under a different union, right?
Yeah, they're still shooting.
So yeah, so they're still shooting that. So we still get like some forms of entertainment over there as well, even though they did say that they stand in solidarity with the actors and stuff like that over here when it comes to what they're going through. They're not affected. Like they can continue to, pretty much shoot and go on. But it's just like, damn, we were in the middle of Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like
That's
actors
yeah, Deadpool. That's scrapped. Not the movie's not scrapped, but it's halted production.
on hold. It's halted right now. Like things that we were in the middle
everything
of,
is halted.
It's halted, like in the middle of production of these things. So it's just like, damn, like when and yo, Ron Perlman, did you hear what he said, bro?
No.
Oh, bro, you got to go back and watch Ron Perlman was not at bro, he was in rare form. Like he is in rare form. Him, what is it? James Gunn's brother.
Oh, Sean Gunn. I saw what he was talking about because he was on Gilmore Girls for a long time and not getting. Look, the reality is, I mean, the people that make this stuff do not get the kind of money. Everyone thinks everyone in Hollywood gets rich. Everyone in Hollywood is, in fact, getting screwed. Unless you have real ownership, because the studios will say that nothing makes money. Yeah. And they will. Because there's ways they can get around saying something didn't make money. Because what they do is they can always charge things. The studio will charge all of its overhead to one movie over and over and over and over and over again. And it's legal. And the funny thing about it is, to me, like, look, this animosity, when you do good business with people, and greed always gets in the way. And I understand now greed more than ever because everything is more corporately owned than ever before, and everybody wants the bottom line. That's why I think, look, people should just get paid their fair share up front. This idea of residuals and waiting for money.
For 90 days, for like a super long time.
Oh, I'll tell you something. If you work freelance, if you work in freelance in Hollywood, it's net 90. You submit your invoice, and it's 90 days from when you submit your invoice. Mm-hmm. So for people who don't know what that means is, like, let's say I work on a project. If I work at some place as a freelancer, it could be a big company. It could be a studio, Universal, Warner Brothers. I work for NBC, whatever. I submit an invoice. Like, I'll give you an example. When I did X-Men 2, the special features for X-Men 2, the way they paid you was I'll flat out tell you, the budget for the X-Men 2 DVD, what I got was $150,000. So the way they paid you was they gave you $75,000 up front. Now, I was traveling to the set. I was paying Dave Parker, my editor, and any money, and I was paying for office space and renting equipment and all that. So of that, I get $75,000 up front, and then I get $75,000 after I deliver and submit my invoice. X-Men 2, the disc, had come out and it had been reviewed, and they still owed me $75,000. So you are fronting, if you're a small company, you're fronting money for the studio because you have to spend the money to get it finished. Yeah. And hopefully you've carved yourself out some profit from that, but you don't get the profit until the end because you still have to pay for everything. And that kind of stuff kills smaller businesses because the studios will wait you out. They want to get their interest payments. It's not in their best interests to pay you. So it was 109 days.
They're hoping you'll forget. They're hoping as an artist you'll forget to follow up on that stuff.
Well, yeah, and submitting invoices, and people think like, oh my God, so they already got their work and they were profiting off it before I got the rest. And I'm just my company had 2 people working for it, me and someone else. And in the meantime, now that whole production, so that might be a 6-month period of time, 7-month period of time, and what if that's, and of that money, of the $150,000, how much of that do I get to keep? Let's say it was $40,000, but it took me 7 or 8 months to get that $40,000. And when I get it, do I have the $40,000 that I need to pay my rent and food and everything? I mean, that means I had to have had another job before that. Thankfully, I did. I had X-Men 1. But it's not like it's hard to get rich. Yeah. Let's see. Joshua Gonzalez. This is interesting. Joshua Gonzalez says, "Oh, hang on a second. Wait, I'm not." Red One Real Talk says instant gratification has become a dangerous drug that streaming has amplified, and until we wean off that, I don't know how the entertainment industry will evolve. Well, I mean, I think the real thing is that, we're just consuming and consuming. It's in one ear and out the other. I mean, I used to buy a record album and I'd listen to it 100 times before I moved on to another record album. Now it's like we binge, and when we're done, we go and do something else, and we're always looking for something more. Nothing has any staying power anymore. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's ever going to change. I really don't. I don't see that changing, unfortunately. Instant gratification, that's what everybody wants because we can get it. Like before, you'd have to drive to a record store. Now you can just download or listen to the stream on Spotify or whatever. You can get whatever you want immediately. And also, if you don't like something in the first 5 minutes, you go to something else. You never get a chance to have something grow on you. I mean, speaking of Raspberry Beret, I remember hearing Around the World in a Day, the album. That was the album Prince released after Purple Rain. And it starts out with, it's a weird record. It has all these kind of Middle Eastern influences, and I didn't even know if I liked Around the World in a Day very much. But the more I listened to it, the more I saw because Raspberry Beret is one of the obvious hits, and then there were songs like Pop Life, everybody, I mean, it was, I won't sing Prince for you. Or America. I have, there's a 20-minute version of America I have on vinyl. But yeah, you'd have to listen to things over and over again. Now, if people don't like it, they just turn it off and go to the next thing.
Go to the next song, or download the songs that you want.
Right.
That's it. That's the tough part.
Joshua Gonzalez says, I can only imagine what it was like when the Beatles blew up the world with a great movie and an album, A Hard Day's Night. We need that again to happen. I don't know if we'll ever have a super group like the Beatles capture the world the way they did. I don't know if we could, if that'll ever happen again.
I don't know, bro. I mean, super groups now, like, I don't know, bro. It's kind of hard to come by.
I watched a video yesterday about a 9-year-old girl who fell in love with the music of the Doobie Brothers, specifically Michael McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
It was the weirdest. I don't know if you guys saw that, but this
No.
girl, she fell in love with Michael McDonald's voice, and then she ended up actually going to a concert and meeting Michael McDonald. Heard about this, and she actually got to talk to him on the phone, and she had a hard time realizing it was basically a grandfather singing this stuff, because this was, and I was like, well, that's a weird, what a weird thing. Like, for whatever reason, this kid keyed into Michael McDonald. She's really cute. I mean, if you look it up, it's a very sweet story. The video is cool. But I'm like, hey, if some 9-year-old girl can become obsessed with the 70s Doobie Brothers and the sound of Michael McDonald and then his work as a solo artist, more power to her. There's crazy things in the world.
That just lets you know that the music is still sustainable, bro.
It
Very
is.
simple.
It'll always
It
be,
is.
always.
It's something that's there, that it's generational. Like, you can find, especially if you hear it, you listen to it, if the lyrics themselves are speaking to you, bro, it's generational. It's going to always be something that connects to you.
Yeah. Andrew Christie asks, super curious about LA's part in the industry moving forward. Will there be a new epicenter of cinema? Well, I mean, there's a lot of production in Toronto. There's a lot of production in Vancouver. There's a lot of production in Atlanta. There's been a lot of production in Louisiana. The business is still kind of anchored here, but production's all over the place. So I would imagine the business will probably stay here, but you never know. There's no more reason to do that. I mean, go where the incentives are. You can make movies virtually anywhere. But the business...
Is Canada affected by the strike?
Yes. Any SAG production is affected by the strike. The Writers Guild and yeah.
So that means the Lifetime movies are affected.
Yes. Unless they're non-union, they don't use SAG actors.
They
or
do.
WJ.
It's all famous actors who don't star in $1 million films anymore. They star in the Hallmark.
Yeah. So they're totally affected. Sonny Dominguez says, Post-Geek Singularity Orgy on Thursday at 5 after the Inglorious Trexperts panel in room 5AB. And by orgy, I mean meet and greet. Will there be billowing hair? Will Rob share clips from the sex tape he spoke of last night? Drinks somewhere? This is true. Thursday at Comic-Con, we have panels. There is a Free Enterprise panel at 4 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock, there's another panel that I'm not on, Inglorious Trexperts, but I'll be there. And then after that, so at 6 o'clock, we will be having a PGS meet and greet. So if you're at Comic-Con Thursday night, come on down. I think we'll meet probably at the Hilton Bayfront Bar outside. I have to make sure. That's always a good place to meet. Or maybe at the Marriott next to the convention center. That way we don't have to walk that far into everyone's trying to get dinner in the gas lamp. So probably do that. But yeah, I will figure that out by Monday. Sam. Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, Robert, and I apologize for interrupting.
No.
Tom Jr. Jackson says that Zachary Zabale says that you missed his super chat.
Did I?
I don't know. I don't know.
I can look. I can see.
Okay.
Yes, that is true. No, his is actually yes, one of two, but yes, I did. It's coming. It is coming. Because the way I'm looking at it now is different than it's organized in the chat. Okay. So there's one more. Zachary is after this one. Okay. Sam Rizzo says, hey, Rob, George Michael was a true musical talent in the 1980s and 90s. Have you seen the new Wham documentary on Netflix?
Yes.
I've seen it twice. Loved it. Have you guys seen it?
Yes.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good.
You were going to watch it. I thought you watched it.
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Okay.
With these people, but I definitely, because I got the next 2 days because I got to myself, put it that way. So I'm definitely gonna watch it because, again, Wham, yeah, Wake Me Up Before You Go back in the 80s for me was always the shit. So definitely.
Oh yeah, no, it was, and it's interesting how that came about, and you'll find out when you watch the Wham documentary. And now Zachary Zabale. Zachary says, along with TV raising the bar, we have our particular pleasures on tap on YouTube, TikTok, etc. We know what we like, but the studios don't have the algorithm. I mean, that's another thing. We're going to have studios making decisions on what movies to make based on an algorithm. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Because all they're going to do is take things that have already come out and compare and contrast them and say, this is what people want. And it's like, that means all we're going to do is get things that have come before. Because algorithms can only look at things that happened before. They can't predict what somebody does that's brand new.
Yeah.
I think that idea is scary as fuck. I don't want that to happen.
Well, that's one of the things that you was mentioned in the documentary 1982, The Greatest Geek Year, was about how there wasn't that dependency on an algorithm. It was individuals making decisions, tough decisions, very tough decisions, and it had nothing to do with algorithms whatsoever.
No. And it was people making things that they wanted to make. Based and you know, is an algorithm like if a great filmmaker wants to adapt a novel, like one of my favorite books I ever read was Donna Tartt's novel The Secret History. It's not a genre novel. It's about kids in an elite college and their philosophy professor and murder. But it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. I'm surprised David Fincher hasn't made that into a movie. I thought Gwyneth Paltrow had bought the rights or whatever. There might be a reason. I don't think any algorithm would say, yes, we should make The Secret History into a movie. I don't think any algorithm would say that it should get made into a movie or at least a streaming series because it would be great. I'd rather see it as a movie, but an algorithm would never pick that. Would never do it. Scott Bartholomew said, I would love to see Christopher Nolan direct a Star Trek movie. So would I. I'd pay good money to do that. I'd love to have a filmmaker of that caliber. That's exactly what I would. It would be the realization of a dream to have a filmmaker like that. We kind of got that in Star Trek 2, and that's somebody like Nicholas Meyer, who has the kind of brain that Christopher Nolan does. I mean, obviously not the money and not the budget to make the movie, but yeah. Hunter Becknell says, "What's up, Rob? Lover the billowing. Love the billowing."
Yeah.
That is, I mean, there's been billowing all night, which is great. Albert Vasquez says, I think Ahsoka looks awesome.
Yes.
And what did you think of the Ahsoka trailer?
Yes, it does. It does. I was talking about this the other night on Uncivilized. I was like, yo, it gives me that same feeling when I saw the trailer for Force Awakens. Like, you know, literally it did. Because I love that trailer. I'm not going to lie. I love the trailer for Force Awakens, the very first one. But it gives me that same feel of something new, something fresh. And I think that Dave Filoni is going to put his all to this because it is his baby. You know, seeing Thrawn for the very first time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I tell people, I've been telling people like the last couple of days, Shin Hati, that's going to be like one of my favorite characters. I just, something about her on screen, it's you know, basically like it just captures you. Balin, the great Ray Stevenson, you know, may he rest in peace. Can't wait to see that. I just think that all in all, the story, you know, hopefully the story does bode well, and that it's not just because this trailer looked good that the entire season can succeed. But I'm so behind it. I can't wait. I definitely cannot wait.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. I think it looks great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thomas Logan says, with Keelar's day and date IMAX release plan over, Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 crosses 700 million. Studios only survive now via quality cinema in theaters. Well, I agree. I mean, I think Dune 2 is going to... I think it's garnered a huge following since Dune 1 came out. I think the Dune 2 trailer is great. I think, you know, we're not that far away from Dune 2. It opens in November.
Mm-hmm.
So August, September, October. So
right around the corner.
Right, yeah, I can't wait to see it. It looks incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fauci's prison butt says, Rob, I'd love to see full film reviews from you. With Warner Brothers rebooting DC, I'd love to see a full Man of Steel review. There's a reason people keep talking about it. You know, I've thought about that. I've thought about doing movie reviews, but the thing about that is I'd rather just talk about movies like on live streams. You know, I think going back and doing movie reviews, like I love what Lana Ewan is doing on the channel with her movie reviews, because she's reviewing things she hasn't seen, And going back and I don't know about if I would want to go back and do classic reviews. I used to write classic reviews for Sci-Fi Universe magazine back in the 90s. I just don't know if I would, because I'd want to do these long, elaborate reviews, and I just don't know if I have the time to do it. You know, I'd rather talk about movies on streams like this or pontificate about them live, or I'm speaking extemporaneously. Because if I was writing a review, I'd really want to delve into my thoughts and organize them. I kind of rather talk off the cuff, you know, like with you guys about movie reviews, rather than like we were talking about Mission Impossible.
Yes.
You know,
and I write down questions. So when the points that I made up, those are things that I've actually written down. So I prepare before these shows. I have a full script of what I want to ask. But when I do like my PGS reviews, the PGS moving image, I like to ask the guests questions and find out what they think and get their opinion about the movies. And that's what I've been doing. Rather, you know, I could talk about what I think about a movie forever, but I want to hear what other people think and, you know, what touched them in the movie as well.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I totally agree with you. Rebel Sky says Robert Sire Burnett, for short, Queen and Emperor Lael. Boy, I mean, you're definitely, we're not shooting low on this one.
That's sweet. I'll take it.
You can be our queen. You can be our billowing queen. I'll take that. Eddie Rodriguez asks, hey, Robert, what are your thoughts on the sci-fi series Eureka? I recently just discovered it and fell in love. Eureka was good. Eureka was about a town where a bunch of geniuses live and work and make stuff. And it's about a U.S., was it a marshal becomes the sheriff? I like that show. It was fun. I mean, it was...
They were isolated, right, Robert? There was a dome or something. Am I?
Well, that's under the dome. They weren't. But
that's under the dome. Okay.
Yeah, but it was good.
It was
It was good. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. It was the mid-aughts. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was a lot of fun. I thought it was a fun show. I had friends that worked on it. I thought it was good. Yeah, you know, I watched it when it was on the Sci-Fi Channel. I didn't watch it religiously, but I liked the show because people I knew worked on it, so I'd watch it. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't know if it could get made today, but it always put a smile on my face. It was a fun show.
It had a good run too. 60 what was it? 60 episodes. It was 2006 to 2012. That's a good amount of time.
That's a really good amount of time. Yeah, it was good stuff. It was good. I liked it. And it there's a lot of great characters too. And yeah, I liked it. And Deborah Farentino was in it. So, hey, what's not to love? Let's see. Joe Panora says, could one of the issues be the government not enforcing monopoly laws, allowing mergers and acquisitions, limiting the competition in the studio space? Well, I think that's part of it. But I think one of the biggest problems is movie going just changed. You know, yeah, mergers and acquisitions and monopolies are always a problem, but the fact is, I think movies were the art form of the 20th century, and I think movies are going to eventually. People will always make movies; they'll always be that narrative. But look, the younger generation does not have the attachment to TV shows or movies the way we do. Gen Z is not watching shows religiously. They're watching TikTok, they're watching Instagram, they're watching Reels, they're watching YouTube shows. And in 20 or 30 years, are we even going to have movies? Are we even going to have shows?
I think the documentary is going to have a renaissance. I think documentaries are going to suddenly become more important because people, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people are going to look to them for history, for historical purposes. So, you know, like the Wham documentary might be the only way that anybody's, even not us, but many people even hearing about Wham or understanding Wham. It's going to be that documentary. That's going to be their they're going to put in a reference line, the Wham documentary, Netflix. You know, that's going to become more more important to them necessarily than going to a resource in the library that's non-video and looking at a book or reading interviews and things like that. So I think that's definitely something that's going to continue to grow. And we're going to see more people doing documentaries, more focus on that, I think, going forward.
The only thing I hope that does not happen is that I hope we don't get an influx of reality TV shows. I swear to
Yeah, I
God.
mean, yeah, we've already got a lot
I
of that, you
swear
know.
to God, bro. I just don't want any more reality TV shows, bro. I mean, TV shows killed MTV. Like I just don't want any
They
more,
did.
man.
I mean, and you know
They
what?
started it, right, with the Real World. They started it.
Yeah, bro, and it just went downhill from then. It was like, look, it's just I don't want another reality TV show, bro. I've never watched Real Housewives of anything. I never watched the Kardashians. It's just like I don't watch reality TV shows, period, bro. And it's just like
I don't either.
when
I watched Dancing with the Stars, and that's kind of reality TV, or is it?
I mean, but it's what I'm talking about is what they want to deem reality TV and say that it's unstructured when it really
Yeah.
is.
Well, also, you know, the idea that you're watching intentionally bad or outrageous behavior and everybody gets to watch
Yeah,
and judge.
bro.
I mean, what is it doing to the audience?
I just
You know, and the
can't,
the Kardashians become heroes to everybody, and people want to emulate their behavior. I want to grow up and become a Kardashian because they're like rich or whatever. It's a weird thing. And again, you know, it's funny. MTV, the demise of MTV. By the way, one of the most entertaining books you could possibly read is I Want My MTV, the oral history of the first 10 years of MTV, where they interview all these people. It's a crazy fun story. But, you know, you go back and you watch, like on YouTube, old MTV shows like 1985, The Year in Review. And when you find those and you watch the old MTV VJs and you watch all the things that happened in 85 in terms of music, it was crazy. Like all the different, and none of that happens anymore.
No.
And I miss the fact that MTV really supercharged, at least for the 1980s, music, because you had the confluence of music, movies, fashion, pop culture. I mean, it was all part of the same continuum. And, you know, you could see things all butted up against one another. You could see a hair metal song. You could see, going back to Cali, LL Cool J, Black and White, one of my favorite videos of all time. You could watch Love in an Elevator from Aerosmith. You could watch Cradle of Love from Billy Idol. I mean, you could just watch, Tina Turner would sing Private Dancer. I mean, you could see all this stuff lined up next to one another. And then 120 minutes on Saturday or Sunday nights, late night, and all the Headbangers Ball. And it was all so cool. And you know, you turn that on in the background and you'd have all this imagery and fashion and music, and it made pop culture. That was, I mean, MTV was such a driving force of pop culture in the 90s or the 80s. You know, it started in 81 and it carried us through, and it was, I mean, the 80s were fucking fun, man.
Bro.
And people were going
80s were
out.
incredible, bro. Like the 80s, you know, and I say this is like, you know, the 80s was around the time that I spent so much time, you know, outside, you know, just discovering the outside world. There wasn't digital. We didn't have like, all I had, like for me, all I had was my BMX or my Mongoose, my cassette tape. Like straight up, I had my Mongoose or my BMX. I had my Walkman, and we rode everywhere. Straight up, every block. Like I remember, like, you know, being on, being in Linden Boulevard, and you know, basically in Linden
and Bedell.
Yeah, and then going, exactly. Going from there to the Coliseum, seeing cats outside.
Yes.
When we used to basically go to like, what was it? It was like Fast Marks, which was right up the street from the Coliseum. Where we used to get nothing but, they used to, we moved past the era of cardboard, and we started getting like floor tile, like this tile. They used to cut it, and we used to come out, and everybody used to break dance on the block. shell top Adidas suede Pumas. The girls used to sit across the street on a brownstone and just watch us show off, because that's what we used to do until I lost one of my suede Pumas down the drain and I had to go home with one sneaker. Like, I remember like stuff like that, but it was just the freshness, the newness. Like, everybody just spent so much time outside getting to know, and it was more social. We were
Right.
social. We were just social animals.
And there were house parties too.
House
There were
parties, block parties,
dances, yeah.
everywhere, like straight
Yes.
up.
And it wasn't
Like,
malevolent. No one was getting shot, except in
nobody
LA.
was getting shot. It was just like everything just felt so good. The music was banging, like the DJs out on the block.
Mhm.
The girls were looking good. The guys were looking good. Like, you would, and then after that, after you had your time outside, you would go home and then you would watch incredible, like just entertainment on TV. We used to basically listen to The Wiz. We used to listen to everything, and it was just entertaining. Everything about the 80s was just so fresh and new, high colors. Like, you used to sneak downstairs when your mom and dad was upstairs, watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High. First, the great, what was it, like the Greatest American Version?
The last American version.
Last American Version, Porky's, all of that stuff. Like, you just watch it, and when your
Well,
mom
then
be
you
like,
had-
"Hmm,
you had
what
the-
you downstairs doing?" You be like, "Nothing." Your dad be like, "Yeah, I know you're looking at titties." Be like, "Dad, don't tell my mom." But it was just fun. Like, it was just, everything was just so
That's what
fun.
it was. It was a lot of fun, and
Yeah,
and that
it
was. I mean, we don't have. It was funny because Joyride did not do well. The movie, the raunchy Asian comedy about the 4 Asian girls, I loved it, and nobody went and saw it. And I thought, wow, maybe this will kick off a new raunchy. I mean, I thought it's so raunchy, and no one went. And I was like, how did nobody? This did really well in the festival circuit. People liked it, and nobody went. And I'm like, I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this movie was,
bro.
yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah,
are
bro.
people offended now by raunchy comedies? Can you not?
They are, bro. They are, bro.
I'm like, kids today are so triggered by everything, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you guys having fun? Where's the
Yeah,
fun, man?
It was just so, everything was so fun. And the thing is, we used to, like, literally, the romanticism was high in the 80s, because you used to basically walk over your girlfriend's house. You used to sit on the porch. You used to sneak a kiss as long as her mom and nobody else was looking outside. And you used to walk home feeling good, because you was like, yo, used to stay on the phone. And you'd be like, no, you hang up. Now you hang up. No, you hang up. Now you hang up. No, you hang up. Now you hang up. And then 7 o'clock in the morning, y'all both damn sleep on the damn phone.
Totally.
Like, that's just how it was. And it was fantastic, bro. The first time in the 80s when you just figured, like, yo, having a boner is good. Like,
And
everything was just
there was long distance, so you couldn't, like, long distance costs money. So if you met somebody and they were not in town, you couldn't necessarily have a relationship with them because it would cost a lot of money. But there was also Video Music Box. There was a bunch of other like, say, shows like MTV, but they showed other stuff. Video Music Box was mainly hip hop, and they just did a documentary about those guys for doing shows about hip hop. And there was a bunch of other shows that would come on late at night that you could watch that would show videos other than MTV. It was a great time for music and for discovering new artists. I know that's where I first saw De La Soul. Before they
Radio Music Box showed everything, like straight up and comers that you basically didn't know. Even, like I said, Hawaiian Sophie, Jay-Z's first joint, it was him and Jazz. That was the first time you knew who Jay-Z was. But back then, you thought he was Jazz's DJ. But
right,
he wasn't.
yeah.
He was just another cat. But the thing is, they started showing like all, even from West Coast, like from the West Coast to the East Coast, everything was basically showed on Video Music Box. And that was our entryway into, like, just the world of not just hip-hop, but just in music in general, like just interviews and stuff like that. Everything, it was, bro, it was.
They would go to events and
Yep.
like from an actual event, and they would, like, just have a microphone and a light, and they would say, okay,
and just go out and just do stuff like that, man.
Well, even the personalities too. I mean, like now, when MTV was on, you'd see a lot of musicians more interviewed in their natural environments. Like they were backstage somewhere, they were at some club or something, and you'd see one of the. it felt like they were actually out there making it happen, as opposed to now, or you'd see somebody in the studio. And another thing that I learned in junior high and high school, I learned how to time travel and how to bend time. Do you know how you would bend time? Now, I can't do it now, but when I was younger, so you'd go over to your lady's house, you'd go over to your girlfriend's house, and you'd like be making out. And you get home from school like at 3 o'clock, and you knew her parents were going to come home like at 6. And it took you 3 hours to work up the nerve to try and go up her shirt and touch her boobs. And it seemed like just seconds had taken place. And as soon as you worked up the nerve, and if you were good, you could pop open, because girls had their clasps were in the front then. So if you could do it, with these 3 fingers and do that, and you were a master, and you could slowly. But by the time you did that, it seemed like it lasted 15 minutes. When you'd really been making out for 3 hours, you'd hear the car come home, and just after you popped the bra and you were gonna get a little areola, boom, the mother came home. So I swear to God, I traveled 3 hours in 15 minutes, and it happened a lot.
You're like, what's going on in here?
Oh yeah. Oh, I went out with this girl her mother would not let us shut her door when I was at their house.
Well, you were
And I'm
lucky
like,
even in her room, Robert.
Bro.
You were lucky.
Right? Those moments, and then, hey, Rob, always, and everybody experienced this out there. If everybody watching the chat, you cannot say you didn't experience this. It's when you were making out with a girl, or a girl was making out with a guy, or whatever it was always that nervous breathe.
oh yeah.
And she'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing. Nothing.
Oh yeah.
Because you would always lie and be like, "This ain't my first time. This ain't my first rodeo." But then when it came down to it, it was always that nervous breathe. And she's like, "Why are you breathing so hard?" I'm just excited. I'm just overly excited.
And you were. That wasn't a lie.
You were excited, because it's those moments, especially when you know you achieved what you set out to achieve. But you were right, Rob. As soon as you heard this, who's in there? You know what? You discovered the art of bending time and time travel. I discovered the art of making it home in 30 seconds after I heard.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was
that window. I leaped out the window so fast. I was the bionic man. I swear to God, when I was running, I heard the whole way home. That's just how it was.
Dude, and you know what's funny? It wasn't until I got a little older that I realized the girls were frustrated. She's like, "I waited for you for 3 hours to touch me where I wanted you to touch me."
Yeah.
Why? And we didn't know. And I'm like, "God damn it. You mean I could have had my tongue between your legs before your mom got home?" And the girls would be like, "Well, yeah, if you knew what you were doing."
Yeah, we can't go ahead and tell you to do something because it looks slutty. So,
Right.
We can't verbally tell you, but we are waiting. Yeah.
I know. Oh, I know. I learned that early on, but I didn't.
I can't tell you how many movie theater trips were like that, where it's like we're an hour into the film and nothing has happened, and I'm like, what's wrong? Nothing's ever going to happen here. This is, or 15 minutes before the film ends, the credits are running. I'm like, you had all like the first half of this film to do something. It's.
I mean, I wonder with porn so readily available, the joys of all of that are missing from today.
God.
I worked in a theater for many years, so.
Oh my God.
I think the joys are missing.
Man.
Sneaking into movie theater, sneaking into movies. That's something I don't think people would ever do now, but we used to do it all the time. It used to be so much fun to kind of have these little things that you could do.
And also,
so many memories.
There was I had a group of friends that we would have parties and stuff like on the weekends when parents were gone, and like I had a group of like, I don't know if this there was some crazy shenanigans. Like I had times when people who were like their girlfriends or something would come on to you. Like there was I won't use any names, but there was some weird shenanigans. There was all kinds of crazy you never knew. Like when I was in high school, you just never knew when you were going
to. You went over to the house. You pretty much were fair game. So this is what you didn't understand. They were just waiting for the moment where they could get you in a corner, essentially.
Well, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And it was.
Have you? Okay.
I
have
could
you
write a book
ever-
about high school that nobody would believe.
bro.
People like, come on.
So, Rob, I know you've done it. Have you ever fantasized about a conquest and you actually
I
achieved?
fantasize 24 hours a day, Lael.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, you fantasize about a conquest
Yes.
with with someone that you just wanted so bad, and you
Yes.
fantasize about, and you actually achieve it. I did once, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna put this person on blast. Once it happened, I was at my parents' home, and my mother was asleep, and my the girl that at the time, it was like we used to always fantasize about this female, talk about it and stuff like that. She came over one night at my home, at my house. And literally, she came over. Yet listen, over at my home. This shit always happens this way. When you sneak up to your room, the floor always creaks, the steps creak, everything, and you don't understand it. So anyway, made her all the way up to my room. The night was so incredible. What, bro, Nikki, yo, those moments when they do is this that you never forget them.
Lael, what you're talking about is the stuff they make movies about.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
You know what? It was moments that I always thought that I would try. I would want to live vicariously through Rob, but I actually lived it, and I'm happy.
Yeah, well, since you asked the question, I mean, it was really interesting because it got to a point where, so there was a girl in my high school named Kelly Sugg, Kelly Eden Sugg, and I went. She was new. She came in like our junior year, and she was like a big deal in our school, and everyone was always talking about her. I'm like, yeah, she's cute. I mean, she's really pretty and sexy, and everyone liked her. She was really funny. And I once, I was writing an article. I was asked to write an article in the high school newspaper by some girls that weren't getting asked out to the homecoming dance. And so I wrote an article in the high school newspaper, and I wrote in the newspaper, I'm like, you know, a girl doesn't have to look like Kelly Sugg for you to want to ask her out. And I wrote that in the paper, and I didn't really know Kelly. And because I was always writing that kind of stuff in our high school paper, and because I could get away with it. And Kelly came up to me and she goes, "That was actually very flattering what you wrote." She didn't see it as being disparaging. So, you know, it wasn't until I graduated. We graduated from high school, and I had a friend named Noel Boyle, and Noel was friends with Kelly. They were like really good friends, and Kelly was friends with Noel and Louisa Chang, and so Noel and I and Kelly, the summer after we graduated, somehow became friends, you know, and I never thought, I kind of thought Kelly was out of my league in a way. You know, I was like I was very aware of what was attainable and what wasn't. Like if I would go to a dance club, I was never the guy. I'm like, everyone's looking at the hottest chick in the class. I'm like, that's that noise. No. I would always like to find a girl that I thought was cool looking or that interested me, or somebody that I figured was attainable. So Kelly and Noel became friends, and then I go off to the Evergreen State College, and they came to visit me once on the weekend in college. And it was one of those things. I lived in A dorm, and Noel was drunk and went to sleep in my room, and then Kelly and I rode the elevator up and down in A dorm for hours just talking. And she goes, "How come you've never asked me out?" I'm like, "Why would I ask you out? I mean, you're kind of I think you're kind of out of my league." And she goes, "What are you talking about?" And I go, because she didn't think of herself the way everybody else thought of herself. That was the one thing I didn't know either, was like girls didn't, half the time girls did not know how much we all lusted after them. So anyway,
because we were too stupid and we kept it quiet, or sometimes, you know what? Sometimes they knew, but they waited.
Yeah. So this is to give you a time frame. This was in January of 1986 when then I did end up asking Kelly out, and we became boyfriend, girlfriend. And then there's a lot of stuff that happened, and she went to Alaska for the summer of '86 and all this, and we didn't know. And then she came back, and then we dated. We were together for so. Here's a picture. Here's a picture. And by the way, I'd written about her in high school, ended up dating her, and we are friends to this day. She married another guy named Rob. But anyway, here is Kelly Sugg and myself on the beach at Cannon Beach, Oregon, in the summer of 1987. Yeah, that. Yeah. So.
So, bro.
So there you go.
Damn.
Guys.
Wow.
That's wonderful that you have that photo, Robert.
Oh,
motherfucker.
Well, it's just. I mean, it's funny because it was, and to stay friends. It's really funny. I have a picture of us. I'll find it. I have a picture of us at our reunion in 2015, and it's kind of funny that and I'll find it. But it's funny because all the girls that I've ever dated, for the most part, I'm friends with. Mm-hmm. Because I like them. And I was usually the one that fucked up. I was the one that somehow, did something wrong. But yeah, that was and it's interesting, and what happened was I was moving to California, and she was gonna not move to California, and she met this other guy, and I was leaving, and that was kind of the end of that. And this guy she started dating after me, named Rob, they ended up being together. I think they've been together 25 years now, or something.
Damn,
like
bro.
that. So, what do you do? But she was the one girl I was like, you'd never date me, kind of a thing. And it was one of those.
You are the stories that they tell in legends. You are the story, like they. I once knew a guy named Robert Meyer Burnett.
Yeah, but see the flip side of that. The flip side of that is I was never able to convert that and become a really rich, powerful Hollywood executive. I've been too much of a fanboy my whole life.
Dude, doesn't matter. It's the legends that are told. The legends of Robert Meyer Burnett. Like straight up. No, the memoirs of Robert Meyer
Well, yeah,
Burnett.
that would be.
Your influence and your experience, those special moments are so important. So, and this channel, it's going to have an influence for years to come.
Like when they do like those documentaries, right? And they'll have a documentary. They'll have like people who were actually, around during those events. Could you imagine, and it's always like they'll have people that will say the same things about this person. Could you imagine how many females would be like, and they always cut and slice it so it's at that moment that they say it. So can you imagine like every female saying cunning linguist? Oh, he's a cunning linguist.
Well, that's something they would say.
Yeah, he labeled his name.
They'd be like, Robert Ed gave really good head. The girls would all say that.
Yo, wow.
Yeah, he knew his way around.
Whatever.
It's just too bad he didn't have a bigger dick. Hey, man.
Say that.
What's that?
I would never say anything like that. Women don't.
Hey, man, that's why you have to be a cunning linguist. You got to use what you have, man. Come on. Hey, you can wield it. It's fine. Yeah. It depends. Size queens, well, it's all different. No, but it's funny because that has been. I mean, I've always had fun. I've never not had. I'm having fun now. And I think what was something about the 80s that I thought was, to bring it back to the 80s, was that the fun aspect of it one of the things that it taught me, like, and I keep saying this, because I was so wrapped up in my interests, you know, I worked in video stores and going to movies and all that. It wasn't until between my junior and senior year in high school, because I was elected to student council by the elected student council, I went to this leadership camp, and it was for a week, and we went to leadership camp, and in it we met all the other student council members from around the state of Washington. So I met all these cool people that I didn't know, and after we left, they would always invite people to parties and stuff. And I made a conscious choice. I said, you know what? Anytime somebody invites me somewhere, and if I have to drive a couple hours or travel across the state, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. Because I don't have to see the movie Friday night, opening night. I'll see it Saturday or Sunday. Because it was more important to me to go meet new people and sort of get out of my... And that's when I realized, and that summer changed my attitude. It sort of changed my life in terms of it was more important to go out and have the adventure than to be like, because my first impulse is like, that's too much of a trouble. That's too much of a pain in the ass. I'm not going to go do that. So starting there, it was an important lesson to learn that the idea is, hey, do you want to go do this? The answer should always be yes. Yes, I do. And before then, I missed out. I'm like, in elementary school, I could have gone, like where I lived, they had a school. The school would take students if they wanted to go skiing every weekend. I mean, you had to pay for it, but they had a ski program because we lived close to the mountains to go skiing. And I'm like, well, I can't miss my Saturday morning news cartoons. I have to see the Saturday morning cartoons. And so at elementary school and junior high, I didn't go skiing. So I missed out. But in junior high, I did. And I was like, I fucking love skiing. I love snow. I still love snow skiing. It's just hard to find someone. But I didn't do it. And so I regretted not doing things. And that was a thing that in a way changed my life. So if ever I had an opportunity to do something, and this is my senior in high school, bled into college, and my whole 20s, it was like, hey, let's go do this. I'm like, yes. Like when I moved to LA, people would be like, hey, do you want to go down to Baja, Mexico? Do you want to go down to like Rosarita or go down to Las Salinas, the beach down there, or La Fonda, stay in La Fonda and go surfing? I'd be like, yes. The answer was always yes, let's go do that. Who cares if the drive was... I mean, my friend Mitch Coughlin, he was working on Alien 3. And I remember he comes back. I hadn't seen him like 10 months. He comes back from working on Alien 3 in England. He comes back with a bunch of per diem money. He literally comes to my apartment at like 1 a.m. He walks in and he throws up thousands of dollars of per diem that he had saved because they were working so hard. And he goes, dude, let's go to Vegas. And I'm like, when? And he goes, right now. And I'm like, I was living in Hollywood. I'm like, let's go. Because, you know, you could get to, you could get to Vegas. Like, I can get to Las Vegas from my front door. It's 3 hours to Las Vegas.
Wow, you're lucky.
And it's like, let's go. You know, and that was the whole, my entire from 1988 to about 2000, that was my attitude. Let's just go do whatever.
But
I could have had a better career if I had a
bro.
different attitude.
Yeah, but you still have memories, bro. That's the thing.
That's true.
Careers are things that, literally, it's not to say a career. I always look at it like, you know what, it's never too late. And I believe that age does not define us. It's just, like I said, a benchmark where we just go from one place to another. But memories, bro, those things that you've created, like, they're not to be forgotten. They're things that you cherish because we've all created them. We've all been around where moments that have defined us and made us who we are. Things that you always reflect on, bro. So those are the most important things.
And all this stuff, I mean, I don't think I could be in a relationship with Elizabeth had I not lived the life that I have lived. You know, you have to go through all those things. And like, I honestly don't have any regrets. You know, like I have professional.
You're the most interesting man on the planet. Why would you have regrets?
Well, I have professional regrets. I have things I would have been further along in my career, but personal regrets in my personal life, I shouldn't say I don't have regrets, but I'm happy that I live the life that I will never think like, oh, I really wished I did more of that. I don't have that. That I don't have.
Man.
You know?
your
Yeah.
life only there. I mean, I guarantee you there are people that are envious of your life, bro, and the things that you've been able to experience, like, and the things that you've seen,
Well,
like
Well,
literally.
we grew up at a time where there were so many new things, like for
Hmm.
example, computers and video games,
Yeah.
all
and
that.
these
Fish.
incredible types of entertainment. It was just such a unique time.
Yeah.
And I think that there isn't anything as impressive or fun like that coming out now that's brand new and entertaining, and just people are just having a laugh with. It's very different. We could go to concerts when we were younger and spend $20,
Right.
and it didn't break you. You could sit all the way in the back, or if you want to spend more money, you sit up closer. Sometimes general admission, there were some options. You had options for different things, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of these options seem to have kind of melted away. The notion of even going off to find yourself now, you know, after a while, people were like, "Well, this person lives at home," and I'm thinking to myself, "Well, there are a lot of people who went to college or went out on a job or did something for 4 or 5 years and then came home, and no one ever said anything about it."
Hmm.
It was in our generation, we just worked and did whatever we had to do, but I think it's even harder now for this new generation when it comes to employment, when it comes to their careers, when it comes to chasing after their passions.
That was
Yeah.
another
They
thing. We always worked. Like
Yeah.
I
Yes,
didn't know, I didn't have any friends that we were by the time when you were 16 years old, you had a job. I had jobs
yeah, you
before
did.
that. Because I had expensive tastes. I had to buy videotapes and all this stuff I bought. And my parents
Hmm.
didn't buy me shit except on my birthday or Christmas, and I didn't mind that because I made my own money. But we all worked. Everybody
Yeah.
And
worked.
You
every
worked your
guy
ass
saved
off
up
for
money
what you
for a
wanted.
car. That was
Yeah.
like something every man that I ever met, like between the ages of like 14 to 22,
Yep.
was like, "I'm saving for a car," and I'm like, "Oh, so can we get like, no, I'm a car," and I'm like, "Okay."
First
Like it
car,
was
Chevy Malibu.
this
That was the very
car.
first car I ever
Oh,
had.
dude, that's epic.
Bought it with my own money. The first car I ever had was the Chevy, and I'm talking about Chevy Malibu with the gear shift. That was the first car I ever had, and it was all blue. It was blue, like a nice pearl blue. I loved that car until I wrecked it.
Oh, the
Round. It
Yeah.
got you
Well, you
around.
know what? No, I didn't wreck it. I parked it. Basically, I parked it on State Street, and someone who had actually had a rented van smashed into the back of it and caved it in.
so it wasn't your
Yep.
fault.
Nah, it definitely wasn't my fault, but it was
But
my fault where I parked it. Put it that way.
but it's funny today because kids today don't. When you're 16, you're Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
So like
They
for
don't get
us,
Yeah.
driver's licenses anymore. There's no,
Yeah.
they
I
don't
mean,
get that anymore.
getting a driver's license was the thing. Like you had your driver's license the day you turned 16. It was like you're going to the DMV. Your folks, it was a big deal. If you had to stay out of
Yeah.
school, you would go to the DMV, and that day you were taking your. We had a Ford LTD station wagon with wood, the fake wood paneling on the side, and
On the sides of the car, yeah.
in the back you could open up the
Yeah,
back,
boy.
and they had more chairs so people could sit in the back.
Yeah. Hell
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and I would drive out, and I think I've got like 8 of my buddies in there, and drove somewhere. Like, let's drive around. I mean, it was so, and everybody who got a car, and I was saving up for a car because we only had, my mom had a car, my mom had the station wagon, my dad had his car. I think my dad, that was when he had a Cadillac. Dad wasn't gonna let me drive his Cadillac, so I've been saving up from the time, again, since I was like 14 years old or 13 years old, and my dad and my grandfather would match what I put away in my car fund. So if I put $1, I'd get $1 from my grandfather and my dad. And the first car that I bought was a Toyota Celica.
That's a
Yeah.
good car.
Yeah, I bought it when I was 16. I bought a Toyota Celica. It was an 82 Celica. It wasn't new, but it was pretty new. It cost $4,000.
Yeah, it's a good price.
Yeah, it was like, and it was yellow and all black, had a black leather interior. I called it the Killer Bee. And those are the days, man. I mean, that was a big deal. No one talks about buying. I don't hear any of
Bro.
Sophie or Zoe's friends ever talking about getting cars. Such a weird
No.
thing.
They don't. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like we live in a weird time where it's an Uber thing. You spend more time on TikTok because that's the source of entertainment. Nowadays, just the social jargon back and forth, like social commentary between two individuals, it's almost damn near non-existent. You know what I mean? Like people don't walk over people's homes anymore. People don't, you don't see that. I don't see like when girlfriend and boyfriend used to sit on the front porch and just talk all night. I don't see that anymore because
But
they
you've
don't
got
they
daughters
FaceTime
too.
each other now. Hmm?
You've got daughters,
Yeah.
so you've seen it, and you're right. Everybody,
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if you had FaceTime, it's so much easier because you can have FaceTime at night when you're in your own room. No one knows what you're doing. Imagine the kind of video exchanges that goes on between people today. Come on, baby, show it to
Boy.
me right now. Show it
Boy,
to me.
just let me see a nipple. Just one.
Yeah,
Just
I
one.
mean, and
Just- Just flash it to me real quick. Let me just see it. Let me scratch a snip.
Yeah, I mean, how many? It must seem so. But then again, like everything else, it's distancing. You can just
Yeah.
see it. You don't have to work for it.
Yeah, that's it. Like
You don't get
kids
to
just
lick your
don't-
fingers on the way home.
Yeah, do kids go to clubs anymore? Bro,
Do they?
do they? And that's what I'm asking. Do they? Because like we used to have. Oh my God! Like straight up, clubs used to be the spot. I was getting in
So good.
clubs back in the day that I shouldn't have never
Yeah,
got into.
Too.
Oh, yeah.
But I used to get into
The days
like
of fake IDs and all
yeah, fake IDs or the simple fact that they knew my sister. Like so the club owner knew my older sister, so she would get me into my sister loved her to death. My sister got me into everything. Even when I was too young to get in to see Purple Rain, she got me in to see that. She got me into so many daggone clubs. It was just pathetic. It was crazy. But again, like, do kids go to? But are there clubs even for kids nowadays? But you know what I mean? Like, do they do that anymore? Like, I don't know.
By the way,
I don't know.
our stream. I'm looking at the stream health. It's flickering. There it just
Really?
went back to. Yeah, it was flickering. We're talking about clubs and fun. It's like YouTube saying, "Shut up, you old people."
Hey, they create the ambiance. That's what they're trying to do. They're creating the ambiance.
Listen, I gotta let you go, but there's just a few more super chats. Well, actually, there's more than a few, but we'll rattle through them.
Okay.
Our friend Glenn Mark
Hi, Mark.
says with the lag coming in content, I'm looking at going back to TV of the 50s through the 80s and studying their opening episodes, and
Yeah.
perhaps do a podcast called "Piloting the Pilots." At the top of
not?
the list is the Dukes of Hazzard. Oh, come on, man.
Well, Shadow looks at the TV guides from previous decades.
I
and
love when
kind of-
Shadow does that.
Yeah, yeah.
Shadow's the
So-
best.
He is the best, and one of the things that I think it's really important that he does is that he looks pretty much at the ratings. You know, which programs did well, which didn't. There were a lot of canceled shows as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then. So it was very kind of touch and go in those ratings. Of course, that was one big difference is that definitive marker, being able to see either through Nielsen ratings or whatever it is, exactly how many people are watching what's going on. I think the fact that we can't quantify this with the streaming outlets makes it very difficult to even figure out, where the success or failure of these things stands sometimes.
Oh, totally agree.
Yeah. True.
Totally agree. RRTNZ, another New Zealander, says apparently this is terrible. Why are you saying this? I'm gonna say okay. Apparently Shatner's toupee got knocked off while filming the fight on Cestus 3. It shut them down for a day, and it makes sense. Hair today, gorn tomorrow. You know what? I almost banned you from the channel for that, man. That's terrible. That is a terrible, terrible joke. Come on, RRTNZ. You know I love you, but come on, man. Don't make it hard for me. Hair today, gorn tomorrow. Terrible.
Oh man, we didn't even talk about the last episode of Strange New Worlds, Robert. And I got to tell you, I really absolutely knew that I was going to see Chappelle put her tongue down Spock's throat, but I was kind of hoping she put her hand down his pants and we could see some nice bedroom kind of movement. But yeah, it really was very funny when she went to his quarters to check up on him to make sure he was okay. That something happened, but I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more between the sheets action.
That was such don't even get me started. I'll be here for another hour. Scott Bartholomew says Lana needs to review Race with the Devil. She does, because that movie's great. I don't know what she's reviewing this week. Sean Hoover says the MI films biblical themes throughout. Mission Impossible 1, Book of Job, and Gideon's Bible plot points to MI7's cruciform key, the entity, the beast, its messenger Gabriel, Archangel, Ethan rescued twice by Julia in MI3, and Ilsa in MI5, and lots more. Sean, I brought this up in my interview with the costume designer with Julia Taylor today, and she was like, wow, I didn't know any of that was in the movie. I go, oh, no, it was. The cruciform, the crosses, I was like, the cross, half the cross was blinking red and white, heaven and hell. I mean, there's so much of that. And she's like, I never even got any of that. I go, oh, it's all there. It's all there. Kenneth Colton said, and it's true, Sean, you're absolutely right. Kenneth goes, hail, boss man Rob, goddess and Poe pimp Mr. Lael. With only 2 episodes left, Secret Invasion to me feels lackluster. Such a huge story in the comics, it deserves so much more than 6 episodes, maybe a 2-part film series. Interesting. What do you guys think?
I would have liked to have seen a film. I know that it's hard to put out a film, but I think Samuel L. Jackson has earned it. He does fantastic films. And I think this would have been a great time to see him showcase that. However, you're lucky to get anything these days, and the show is fine. And I haven't watched the whole thing, so I can't comment on it. But I would have loved to have seen him do a film as well.
What do you think, Lael? Give me 5 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
No, go ahead. I think one of the biggest problems, well, not the biggest hurdle, is the simple fact that the comic book version of this story, and when it took place, and how many characters that were introduced during that story, because they haven't actually been introduced in the MCU at all. There's a lot of characters that were pivotal to the story. Jessica Drew, of course. Spider-Woman. Luke Cage. There were so many individuals, so many characters that were very integral to making the story progress, that they couldn't introduce those characters in this particular series. And the only way that they could have done it, Secret Invasion, I always said that if it was done theatrically, it would have to be a 3-part series, a 3-part movie, part 1, part 2, part 3. They would have to do it in 3 films to really cover that spectrum, because it was definitely intense. The storyline with Tony Stark, his role that was basically played in this. Also, we definitely would have needed a Norman Osborn, because that was important. There were so many different things that were in parts to this story that was needed, that, again, when they first selected and said that they were going to do Secret Invasions, I was like, whoa, that's going to be tough. I mean, yes, you introduced the Skrulls, but then you're going to have to do a retelling of what we actually saw in Captain Marvel, and on the simple fact that that when we don't have the heroes, we don't have that palette of heroes that we need to really flesh out the story. It would definitely be hard to do so. So I do believe, and I think that their interpretation of what they're telling right now, the story that they're telling now, I mean, I dig it. I definitely dig it. Missed opportunities, yes, but I'm digging this interpretation and where they're going with it. Because it is believable. I mean, I think that the reason why I'm enjoying it is because of the espionage. I think it's well done. I enjoyed this more than I've enjoyed a lot of the Disney Plus shows.
I agree.
Because of where we're going with this, and the story that's basically being told, even though there's some obvious things that are going on, but are they obvious? We don't know. We just have to kind of wait and see. But I am thoroughly enjoying it. I really am.
I wanted to make a comment about the production value of the show from the episodes that I've seen, and it's top notch.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like ridiculous things. Everything is nice and clean, and it really looks substantial. And I think that that's definitely putting your best foot forward for a story. That's what needs to be continuously done, because when we see things like these unforced errors, it looks ridiculous, and we're not seeing that. I just love how you see the transformation between Skrull to human, let's say, and it's flawless. I think that that's so important in a story like this.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely flawless. I love the simple fact that there's and here's the thing, because stories are driven by dialogue. I know a lot of people want action, they want more action, but the dialogue is so important because there are things that are being said that you can definitely miss if you aren't really listening. Um, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it. Like I can't wait to see
Yeah,
where they
let
go
these
next.
actors act, right?
Yeah, let them act, and it's
I
like they are putting on a clinic right now. They are.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, I read the scripts. I enjoy the story. I mean, it's again,
So you already know where it's going.
yeah, and I think it sticks the landing. And I like the idea, first of all, that the Skrulls are looking for a homeworld, and you have a renegade Skrull he wants to be able to show his real face. I mean, and the actors, they're having a good time. I mean, look, could they have done the Secret Wars or this the Secret Invasion story in the comics? They never could have done that because, you know, and somebody just sent in a super chat asking about Sean Passmore says, do you think Fury didn't reach out to the Avengers since they let Earth down in Infinity War? Fury lost faith in the heroes. I think Fury has no heroes to call.
Yeah.
There is no Avengers.
There's no Avengers set. Like there's no one that you can. There's no one individual part of a team at this moment because they're all fractured.
Yeah, it's all
Everything
like,
is separate. Yeah.
and who do you call? And the thing is, I also think that Fury can't trust anybody now.
Nope.
He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And
if you just found out that there are millions of Skrulls on the planet, who can you trust?
Yeah.
And Rhodey is that even furthers his mistrust.
Yeah, of course. Yep, 100%. And then obviously his wife. What's up with that? You know.
Yeah.
Thomas Logan says, Uncanny Suspects production documentary scrapbook or reflections of the X-Men. What Thomas Logan is referring to is our special features that are on the X-Men 1.5 DVD, and I guess the Blu-rays too. Who on the cast was your favorite to work with? Who intimidated you? Who was difficult? So I interviewed the cast, you know, of X-Men. Everybody was great. I was not intimidated by anybody. Everybody was so nice, and the actors were having a ball. I mean, on X-Men 1, it was a rough shoot because Brian was crazy, but he was, the movie was way underfunded. X-Men 1 was a $75 million movie that needed a lot more money, and Brian had never made anything that big before, and no one knew if it would work. And Lauren Schuler Donner, who produced the movie, thought they were going in the wrong direction. She wanted much more of a comic booky movie. So, but for me, you know, I got to interview people and talk to everybody. It was delight. Everybody was delightful. I had a great time working on both of those movies, and being on the set of X-Men 2 was awesome. I mean, I loved it. RRTNZ says, this was an epic nostalgia trip. Lael's 80s narrative was more entertaining than anything on Netflix. It was indeed a great decade to be young.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe the three of us ought to make a 80s doc.
Oh man, that would be incredible.
Growing up in the 80s, I don't know.
That would be incredible. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, I watched Stranger Things, and it's clear that they didn't, the Duffer Brothers didn't grow up in the 80s, you know, but I still like it.
You appreciate the attempt, even though you're like, certain things feel like the 80s, the music, the soundtrack, okay, yes, certain things that they say, but you still got a long way to get to where we were and what we felt at that time and what was presented. But great attempts, so kudos. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Shellcrow says, I'm here for all the Rob reminiscence segments.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's what I'm saying. We need more of that, bro, because we need more flashbacks to your life, bro. Like, we need that.
It's funny. One day I could write a book. I mean, I'd love to write a book about all of these, the actual thoughts. Because the one thing I never was good at growing up was sharing. People always said that I was hard to get to know, because I didn't think that half the time I was thinking about the Starship Enterprise, so no one wanted to know that. So I didn't like it was hard, and then, but I mean, it would be interesting to write a book about that. Because I look, for the most part, I had a really good time. But there's so many crazy. I have so many crazy stories that people wouldn't believe. You know, they wouldn't believe, and it's but not in a bad way. Yeah, but I'd have to get some other people too. There were other people. Unfortunately, my friend Sean, who Patrick Van Horn plays in the movie Free Enterprise, passed away when he was in his early 40s. I really wish he was here because he and I, the 90s were full of our shenanigans. So there was a decade of stories that we could tell that I can't corroborate with someone, and that bums me out. Thomas Bertoli says, Rob, did you ever do it in a movie theater? I've done it in the bathroom at Anime Expo before. Kim was good at it. Thomas, I can honestly say never. If I was in a movie theater watching a movie, I don't care who you were. I was there to watch the movie. I could never do it. I couldn't. I was always, if a girl and I were making out in the movie, I was always like looking over her shoulder at the screen, trying to kiss her and be good at it, and be like, I was never good at that. So I never had the coolest place that I ever had sex was inside the LA County Museum of Art, in the middle of the day, where nobody knew. People were just walking by us. And it was when the Robert Longo exhibit was on back, I want to say in either 89 or 90. It was crazy. It was crazy. That's
why you see a movie twice.
I know, right? I know. I couldn't do it.
You see it the first time, you get all the experience, and then you go back and see it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get that different experience.
Marco asked if I had to assist in the delivery of the pups. I watched while Elizabeth and her mother delivered the puppies. Now, Elizabeth, when she was growing up, she worked at a dairy, so she knew how to birth animals, and she'd had 2 daughters of her own, and so I just watched, but I was there, and it was amazing. Guillaume Lebel says, are you going to see Oppenheimer in IMAX, 70mm, or both? Probably both. I'll probably have to drive 5 hours to go see it in this optimal format. Go see it in real IMAX.
I got to see Barbie in IMAX. I told Toya because she loves Issa Rae. So I have to basically go see it.
So I love Issa Rae too. She's great. What's not to love?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. Sean Passmore, we have 2 more left. Do you think, or actually 1 more since I already said that one. And if you're going to go see it IMAX, make sure it's proper IMAX, because Oppenheimer was shot entirely in IMAX. So some IMAX screens, I watched a really interesting video about which formats to see it in. Kenneth Colton takes us home and says, Rob, where's your videos of your angry drunk rants? They should be available to members. Well, half the time this show is full of those angry drunk rants.
You can just watch it right here on the Burnettwork.
Yes. Yeah, they're all here. Although, I'm sorry, I'm completely off the sauce. Not for any reason other than getting healthy. I mean, I'm getting thinner. I feel good. Skin looks good. You know, 10 jars of this a day of water. It's amazing. Drink lots of water and don't drink booze and eat a bunch of terrible fast food. And it's amazing what you can do. It's a stunning transformation. Yeah. But that's the end, everybody. That's the end of Super Chats. That's the end of this show. We're 25 minutes late, but we're having such a good time. Let me ask the 2 of you, what do you have going on? What's going on with you?
Well, tomorrow morning I have my Sunday brunch show at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on my channel, Positive Fandom, guys. So please like and subscribe to Positive Fandom. I would love to get to 2,000 subscribers. Right now I'm at 1,380. So it would be great to get to 2,000 at some point. So, and every single subscriber counts. I so appreciate all of you. Of course, guys, as you know, on Monday, I'll be doing Ladies of the PGS right here at 6 p.m. on the Burnettwork, followed by Cat's Corner at 7. And I'm also going to be doing a review of The Sound of Freedom, that film that we were talking about last week. Certainly, I saw the film and I loved it, and I have so much to say about it. So I'm going to be doing a review of that. And of course, coming up, more PGS tracks, more PGS reviews of different things. And so it's going to be an exciting week. Guys, please do like and subscribe to my channel, and also like and subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. Tom, thank you for moderating. We are all goof people, and all the moderators in chat, everybody. What a great show, guys. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you both and everybody.
Lael, what do you got going on, 1/6 scale man?
Oh man, tomorrow. So thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. It's been a ball. Our 80s flashback is always anytime we actually go back to the 80s, I can taste it, I can smell it, I can relive it on this show, and I have so much fun. Listen, we'll probably do it again next week. Some way, somehow. Tune in next week. We will probably rehash on some other moments going from 80s to the 90s because Rob already mentioned a few of or a bit of it. So definitely we might do that. Yes, I am on my way to 4,000 subscribers. Please, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the 1/6 Scale Man YouTube channel. Please, it's the YouTube page. Make sure you do so. Almost there. At least, you know what? At least get me to 3,900. If you get me there, then I'm halfway. I'm almost there. So please get me there. Tomorrow's Collectors Lounge International. So I'll actually be on there. We'll be talking and prepping for this week's what is it? Sideshow Con. Also the Summer
Oh,
Showcase.
yeah. When does that start, Lael?
I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. I think
Okay.
it's Tuesday or Wednesday that actually starts. But also it's the Hot Toy Summer Showcase, which means that we'll get some Toy Fair exclusives this week, possibly. So just be on the lookout for that. Comic Book Talk with Friends on Monday, where we will basically rehash the last episode of damn, my mind
Secret
is pretty much
Invasion?
everywhere. Secret Invasions. Also, we're going to be talking about the Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We'll be covering that as well because that's been something that's been, been an incredible run. Also, just prepping for Wednesday's release of Moon Knight, where they basically feature the Scarlet Scarab. So that's going to be fun as well. So tune in for that. Say What Wednesday, where we basically go over everything that's happening. We'll be talking in more detail about the Summer Showcase and Sideshow Con, what new releases that have been out, what to expect, whether it's going to be a release or a reveal. We'll be talking about that. We'll do Uncivilized next week, I believe, on Mario's channel the following week. We had so much fun with that. Also, Friday is Figure Flex Friday, and in full rotation, you'll see me back here on Midnight Musing, and it'll be fun. So please, thank you very much. If you have already subscribed, and for those who haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the 1/6 Scale Man YouTube channel. I would much appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, kids, I will let you go. Another great show. I'll stay here for a few more minutes and say goodbye and all that. But I will see. Will I be seeing you at Comic-Con? You don't know yet. Do you know for sure you're not coming?
I don't know for sure yet, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know for sure yet.
Okay.
All right.
So,
well,
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it works out.
if you can, we'll have a PGS meetup on Thursday at 6.
We will, Robert.
Yeah. All right, then. I will see you both later.
See you later, man.
Adios. What a great show this was. So that was good. All right, everybody. That was a great show. You know, reminiscing about, I wish I was as cool as Lael thinks I am. But, hey, what can you do? On that note, I just want to thank everybody for generously supporting the channel. I want to thank everybody for musing at midnight with all of us. It's so much fun to have you guys here. Tomorrow, of course, I will be on with Dieter tomorrow. Dieter is back at 11 for Let's Get Physical Media. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what occurs. And no randos tonight, only because I have a big day tomorrow. I have a lot of work I have to do. So, I like going to bed at a reasonable hour because it's been busy. But we have a lot of stuff coming up. And, yes, Comic-Con is in 4 days. Actually, it's preview night's Wednesday night. So it's starting. It's all happening, as they say. But on that note, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And remember, if there's a choice of going out and doing something or staying home, you should always go out and do something because you never know what's going to happen. And you do know that nothing's going to happen if you stay home. That's a guiding principle of my life. So there you go. Of course, that was when I was a younger man. On that note, have a good night, everybody, and I will see you, later today.